Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 19th round of the ISOWC IndyCar Series from Kentucky. This is the ISOWC Kentucky 400, one of the longest races that these drivers will have to deal with all year long. Currently working ourselves on qualifying. About 8 cars have set their qualifying times for the moment. Will Vincent, along with Aaron Likens and Randall Shenworth, for the entire 267 lap race itself. I'm going to come to you first, Aaron. You've raced many a time here at Kentucky. It's a tough, bumpy track, and even though we're under the lights, really does mean that these cars are going to have to find a way of getting themselves through those 2 long corners.
That they are. This may be a mile-and-a-half track, and when people think of mile-and-a-halfs, they think of cookie-cutter tracks, but this track is the exception to that with the bumps on the inside. And not only that, turn one's got to be one of the trickiest corners just to get right. And another element that may come into play is pit exit here. Maybe long corners, but not much room on the inside. So drivers that are on track may have to change their lines, and this track really difficult to change your line once you're in the turn.
Track temperature right now is 74 degrees Fahrenheit. We have a northerly wind of about 7 miles an hour. Now that varies right now between about 7 miles an hour and 10 miles an hour to the north. And these drivers have been having to get used to that new dynamic weather here on the iRacing service.
Yeah, that wind can really mess with the car. Did you say Randolph or Aaron? I might have interrupted Aaron there.
You can both talk, I don't care.
But yeah, that wind definitely plays havoc with the car, definitely messes with the aerodynamics, plus it actually physically pushes the car around. So going through the corners, these guys, up until recently, haven't ever experienced wind, and a lot of people are having trouble adjusting to it.
Now, Aaron, that is going to mean that these cars, especially down into 1 and 2, can get incredibly tight. Now, of course, you're going to want to set up your passes for the most part. As we're working on board with Dave Jinks as he's on his qualifying run, you want to set up most of your passes down the front stretch into turn 1. You're going to have to be very, very careful, though, especially when that air gets taken away from your car. Really can make things very difficult for these drivers.
Most certainly. Listening to a couple drivers before this race, the wind is playing a big factor. These drivers, we've raced for several years with no wind, and now there's wind. And one of the things I think we'll see, as I heard in pre-race chatter, was that wind going into turn 1, the drivers are really going to have to time it right, because they're going to go to the inside, and as soon as they make the pass, the air changes, and they're going to get a massive amount of understeer, which is going to allow the car behind possibly to do the crossover out of 2. So this wind dynamic could really make the racing more fluid and a lot more shakeups and crossovers I'm expecting to see.
And it's a relatively small field here today, Randy, but still, the drivers out front, you've got the likes of Dave Judson, Matt Cook, they are doing battles once again. These drivers only have a couple of races to make sure they can secure their spot in the 2013 ISOWC Racer Champions. Matt Cook hasn't yet won a race, and if he's going to want to get himself into position to race in that event, he's going to have to win, most likely today, because next week we're heading over to a road course.
Yeah, the ISOWC Indy 500 is the arguably bigger than the iRacing Indy 500, I think. And these guys, especially with this small field, they're going to be chopping at the bit trying to qualify for that huge event that's coming up.
And of course, next week we head ourselves over to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Complex before that Racer Champions, which takes place on the 11th of August. The week after that is ISOWC Indy 500 qualifying before the 3rd annual ISOWC Indy 500 coming your way on GlacierTV August 25th. Start time for that, 4 PM GMT. A total of 4 events over the next 10 or so weeks broadcast on GlacierTV starting today. Then the Racer Champions in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks after that, the 3rd annual ISOWC Indy 500. And we conclude our season on October the 27th. Venues either going to be Auto Club Speedway or a repeat of the Michigan 600, which last year brought out an incredibly interesting event. So having a look at qualifying right now, Aaron, and Matt Cook, pole position, for the time being, 24.957. Fast time by him, about 3/100ths of a second ahead of his AeroX teammate in Randy Cosno.
Yeah, and they have about Cook has about a tenth on second and 2/10 on Dave Judson. Dave Judson, though, usually, and when it comes to racing, usually seen him qualify mid-pack, but he's more of a, long distance racer. As the race goes on, he seems to get a little bit faster. But right now, looking at the qualifying times, looks like we've got a Matt Cook, Randy Krosno battle up front brewing.
Indeed, and Randy Crosno start alongside him on row number 1. Then you have yourself Gorg Newjocks and Dave Judson on row number 2. Newjocks doing a good job there in that number 95 machine, Randy.
Yeah, he is trying to take the fight to the AeroX guys up front, and it's going to be pretty hard because they qualified a pretty substantial distance ahead of him.
Then, 5th position, Eric Laval. 6th, we have ourselves Dennis Gurry. 7th is Jonathan Goke. 8th, Eric Hunter. 9th, David Jinks. 10th is Mark Redford. A couple of guys haven't qualified. Philippe Lambert is one of them. And I also believe that Bram Bannerman hasn't qualified as well. We know how good Bram can be on the oval, Aaron. So he's going to have to work himself in the rear of the field to try and get himself up front.
Yep, starting in the back here. And one of the strategies to get up front here, since, as I said, most mile-and-a-half's passing isn't the easiest place, but if you got a good handling car, this is a mile-and-a-half track. You can make your way through the field. Also, pit strategy always is going to come into play, but if you have a good handling car here, and I think this wind, this is the unknown variable where, wow, we're going to see, I think, well, I'm very anxious to see what's going to happen. If you have a car that may be good by yourself, and typically you could have a car good by yourself, but as soon as that, now that they have the wind, you may not be as good as you were, say, a couple weeks ago.
It's going to be one of the important things, Randolph, that they're going to have to think about, track temperature. They're going to have to think about that wind over the course of the run. They are going to have to use those in-car tools, their anti-roll bars, front and rear, their weight jacket, but also consider little things like wing adjustments or tyre pressure changes on their pit stops throughout the course of the day. We know the wind temperature and the wind direction change. In fact, it's just moved from a northerly wind to a northeasterly wind, and that's really going to have to be something these drivers keep on top of.
Yeah, these cars are very, very sensitive to any little changes like that. A little change in pressure can mess with your ride heights, mess with your aerodynamics. You're going to have to make changes to the weight jacker, the wing adjustment, trying to tighten the car up, loosen the car up. It's going to be a puzzle that not a lot of these drivers have ever had to try to solve before on iRacing.
Track temperatures just dropped a degree, actually. And out front, you've got that battle between Matt Cook and Randy Crosno. However, both of those drivers do like this racetrack, Aaron. It's going to be a great race up front. However, you can't discount the likes of Bram Vanneman, Gorg Newjocks, Dave Judson, Eric Laval as well in that 5th position. He'll be starting on the inside. He'll want to get himself past Dave Judson once this race gets going.
That he is. Long race, though, so you do have two elements here. This race, I'm thinking it's going to have a green flag feel, so you do want to aggressively, patiently make your way forward, but since it is a long race, you don't really want to risk it early, and like we've been saying all along, this wind, we can't stress this enough, because in years past, you had your setup, you didn't have to make a change. Now these drivers are going to have to be able to change their setups on the fly, and that's something that just they haven't had to experience before.
So to run through your qualifying order once again, row number 1 is going to be Matt Cook and Randy Crosno. Row number 2, Gorg Newjocks and Dave Judson. Row number 3, Eric Laval and Dennis Gurry. Row 4 is going to be Jonathan Goke and Eric Hunter. Row number 5, Dave Jinks and Mark Redford. Row number 6, Bram Vanneman, and it looks like that Philippe Lambert is having some issues. He might not make the start of this race. Pace car couldn't working himself down the back straightaway. We'll just have to do one pace lap before we get going. Pace car speed is 50 miles an hour. Pit road speed, 45 miles an hour. You've really got to be careful getting both on and off pit road. ISOWC rules mandate the guys have to use that apron all the way around the entry of turn 3 into turn 4, and then they've got to get on the brakes at 45 miles an hour. It's so easy to lock up there. Coming back onto the racetrack, it's a very, very narrow apron. They can't put a foot wrong, otherwise there's a good chance they'll end up putting their car down into the inside wall. Pace car about to make his first journey down towards pit road here today. Matt Cook still pacing 50 miles an hour as we get set to go racing 267 laps in this, the ISOWC Kentucky 400, presented by GlacierTV. Pace car in, and now Matt Cook building up the face, the green flags in hand. We're racing, and Cook gets a little bit sideways at the start there.
Oh, that would have been an awful way to start the race. Good catch by him. But he does lead us down into turn 1.
Eric Hunter falls to the rear of the field early on. Randy Crosno is right on the charge of Matt Cook. It looks like Cook's going to need to get it back together. He's still your race leader. Crosno in second. Gork Nujox is currently scored in the third position. It does look as though they've got a 2-car breakaway early on, as Nujox is already about 6 car lengths behind Crosno in that battle for the second position, Randy.
Yeah, Matt and Randy have been able to separate themselves early. I'm curious about that pickup by Matt early on, though. Matt's a very experienced driver in the IndyCar. I wonder if that's maybe just these temperatures playing a little bit of havoc on him.
Yeah, we did talk to some drivers before the start of the race, and they did say the starts are going to be critical, especially, Aaron, if we get ourselves restarts midway through a fuel run. That's a good chance that these guys are going to have to be incredibly careful, otherwise they could win. We all remember what happened in the Kentucky 400 this time last year.
Oh, yeah, and watching the start, and we got a car spin. Oh, what a save. We just had a great save by Eric Laval. I have no idea how he hung on to that. That was over in turn 1, but a great save by him. But, yeah, it looks like a lot of these drivers are struggling. On the first lap, Dave Judson just about hit the wall in 2. And it looks like it could be the winds, could be the temperatures, but all these cars were a little iffy on the start. And if we have a yellow midway through a run and people don't take tires, that first lap is going to be very interesting.
Eric Raval there in the KSC Vortex Racing car, falling back to the rear of the field. He's now scored down in the 10th position of even on the racetrack as they come past the stripe. So Laval struggling early on here in this race, but it's still Cook leading away by about 6/10 of a second over Randy Crosno. He's been able to pull away right now. Gorg Nujox is slowly catching back up to the rear of Crosno as they come down into turn 3 and 4 once again, working ourselves on lap number 5, and Nujox is looking pretty strong for the time being.
Yeah, he's keeping pace with Randy Crosno pretty good. He ran last lap. He ran a 10th quicker than Crosno did, and I believe he ran in a faster lap this time as well. No, he dropped off a bit that last lap, but still trying to do his best to chase down these 2 Aero X cars at the front.
And another Vortex car getting sideways in turn number 1. That time it was Dennis Grease, and he's fallen about 4 car lengths behind Jonathan Goke right now in that 08 machine. And out, it does look as though the Vortex guys are struggling, especially being a little bit loose in turn 1 early on. And of course, that is just the point where that wind stops hitting the front of the car and moves over to the side. And again, Garis getting a little bit sideways.
Yeah, that wind obviously playing havoc. This is definitely a new day in terms of iRacing strategy. And I heard it, 2 drivers talking before this race, that point in turn 1 when the wind stops hitting the car, the car just gets unbalanced. And if there is one thing you don't want to be in an IndyCar, it is loose, especially when you're turning, and all of a sudden you get that snap looseness. That's what we're seeing, and this is a new component that these drivers are going to have to adjust to.
Dennis Garis falls back, loses the position there to Dave Jinks. You saw that there on your screen. So Garis is now down into the 7th position on the racetrack. Dave Jinks up into the 6th position in that Broken Arrow number 76 machine. To run through your top 10 for the time being, it is Matt Cook from Randy Crosno, from Gorg Nujox, Dave Judson, Jonathan Goke, Dave Jinks, Dennis Garis, Eric Hunter, Mark Redford, and Eric Val. They are your top 10 for the time being. A good battle going on right now between Eric Hunter and Dennis Garis in that battle for 7th position. And Hunter looks like he's got his car a little bit planted after he fell back at the start of this race.
He fell back, yes, and right now it seems he's content just to hang behind. And one thing he's going to have to be careful of, I know we've talked about the wind, and people are probably going to get sick of us talking about the wind, but these drivers are really going to have to stay on the weight jacker, because as looks like, let's see, we got a pass there.
Yeah, Dave Jinks losing a position there to Dennis Garis, who actually lost that position. Yeah, he's going to come back down the inside once again. This is that part down in turn 1 that both those drivers are going to have to be incredibly careful. Dave Jinks running it on the second groove, still 2 wide racing. You see Jinks is struggling there, and that's going to allow Eric Hunter to go by him on the outside line. And outside passes could be the way to go if you can pinch that car down the inside line, Randy.
Yeah, down on the inside here, you got those bumps. And, like Aaron said, we've been talking about it, but with those bumps and that wind, that could really upset an inside car and could actually make the high line the fast way around here, which is usually a bit different from what we normally see.
It was a perfect textbook passer. He did try the cut under down that front straightaway, and of course that is the best part to do it. Come out of turn number 4, you lose your position, you just pull that car straight down to the inside. It's a shorter way around the front straightaway, that dog leg. Looks like that Jinx is struggling a little bit in clean air. His car does look more balanced once he's running in that traffic, however.
Yeah, with the traffic, sometimes the dirty air, if your car's a little bit loose, may just sort of balance it out. And that's why I was saying before we had the change in position, these drivers are really going to have to stay up on the weight jacker, because once they make that change, when they go from having some understeer, now a car behind you, having a car behind you can unsettle the car, can make you very loose, and that's one of the problems with being on the inside in turn 1, especially if that car pinches you. A lot of times you're going to get tight, but with this wind and having the car on the outside, sometimes it wants to sort of suck the rear end around. It can go either way there, and that's one of the beautiful things about this car, and one of the great what separates the good drivers from the bad drivers, obviously, or not the bad drivers, but being able to adjust on the fly to, when you make that pass, staying ahead of the setup, staying ahead of the changes.
Right now, we're working ourselves on lap number 15. That gap between Matt Cook and Randy Crossnow in your battle for the race lead, that is now up to 1.5 seconds. So Cook has been able to break away from that draft of Randy Crossnow. And it does look as though, for the time being, those two are doing very equal lap times. Of course, Crossnow in that dirty air did seem to lose about a tenth of a second as his car wasn't handling very well early on into the run. But last time by, Crossnow in the number 10 machine did a 25.265, just 2/1000ths of a second faster with Matt Cook that last time by, Randy.
Yeah, you were just talking about how he lost that draft, and he might have been running slower in the dirty air, may not have liked the way the car drove, but now that he's got some of that clean air, like we just said, those lap times have been equal, and even then, last time they just came by, it's only a 0.03 of a second difference.
So Cook continues along, working himself now on lap number 17 of 267. And for Cook, the important thing is out front, he's got that clean air as well. He's about half a lap away, half a lap ahead of the guy in the last position, that's Brian Vanneman. So no traffic to deal with this early on in the race. The important thing is, however, Aaron, if he gets himself a caution and falls down the pack a little bit, he's not had the chance to see how his car works in dirty air at all. So that car might be a complete handful once he gets back in traffic.
Oh, you know it. And I'm sure Matt Cook is thinking that too. Sometimes when you get a lead like this, I know in races I've been in, when you get a big lead, which 1.4 seconds in the IndyCar, that's a big lead. And you're thinking, okay, what could go wrong? And if he does get mid-pack, boy, broken record here coming, but with this wind, with the change in the temperatures, the winds, you are exactly right. He may have the dominant car right now, but if he gets mid-pack in all that dirty air, he might not get back. He might not have the car to get back up front. So, you know, he's really hoping this goes green all the way. He makes his pit stops just fine, but in racing, you never know. Nothing's a guarantee to the end. So let's see how this plays out.
We've been running on board with Jonathan Goke, who's sat in the 5th position right now, trying to close down Judson in the battle for 4th. And these two were former teammates. They still know each other's driving styles incredibly well. It does look as though they're pretty evenly matched. As they come past the stripe once again, it was exactly 0.4 of a second. This time, the gap is just come down by a couple of thousandths of a second. Judson had a better lap that time, however, compared to Jonathan Goke. So he's pulling away a little bit, and in turn, Judson is starting to close up on the rear of Gorg Newjox, who last time by was a full 0.2 of a second slower, Andy. So that is going to be a three-way battle for 3rd through to 5th if we're not careful.
Yeah, George looks like he's fallen back a little bit. I've been looking at these temperatures actually since the race started, and we've gone down a little bit. And I'm curious if maybe George maybe missed the mark on his tire pressure, because we've been talking about the wind, but the temperatures. If you miss your tire pressures, that'll completely change the way your car drives, even more so than your aerodynamics will.
And of course, ambient temperature is 73 degrees, so it's a kind of humid day here at Kentucky. And the tyre temperatures really do come into play on this racetrack generally over the course of the run.
George got loose off of 2. That's going to allow Judson to catch up, which Judson got a little bit high, and Judson's going to make an outside pass in 3.
Yep, so he moves himself up into the 3rd position.
Well, with George getting loose, what I was about to say, when your temperatures get down and when you're at a humid racetrack like this, the track it has more grip, but your car is able to get really twitchy as he gets sideways again. So I really do think he might have missed his mark either with his wings or his tires dealing with these temps.
Also have to wonder if maybe he didn't practice a full fuel run. It's one thing to practice with a full load of fuel, but as the fuel burns off, the car gets lighter. I don't know. Maybe he just missed the changes. Maybe it worked good with a full tank, but as the run goes on, that car is getting very unsettled.
Yeah, he will have to be using those in-car tools. He'll be on the weight jacker trying to get that car a little bit tightened up in the centre of the corner. Does look as though he's a little bit better in turn 3 and 4. But you just notice that line that he's running, Aaron. He's not really holding that car on the inside line. He's bringing it down and then allowing it to come back up. And he really doesn't want to turn that car that much. That's why he's getting around it. In turn 1 and 2, he can hold the second line all the way around. 2 very different approaches for 2 different ends of the racetrack.
And that's a sign of a unsettled car. He really doesn't want to put too much input. What he's got to be careful of, if he does put a little bit too much input in, that's when he's going to get in trouble. I'm sure he's already made the adjustment now. Hopefully he was able to make an adjustment that's going to alleviate that snap looseness. But yeah, that's the beautiful thing about this track and this car, being able to make those adjustments. And right now the car looks much more settled than it did, and as he now is getting closer to the yellow line in 3 and 4 than a couple laps ago.
Ahead of him, Jonathan Goke, Dave Judson, they are continuing their battle for the 3rd position on the racetrack. That gap has come down the previous couple of laps, and Goke is starting to reel Dave Judson back in. And for Goke, his last time, 25.288, Judson was about half a tenth slower, and Judson seems to be struggling a little bit as well. He can't bring that car down to the inside line at all in 3 and 4 at the moment, and that is allowing Jonathan Goke to catch back up. We'll see what the times are as they come past the line this time by. Pretty equally matched that time. Judson able to pull out just a couple of thousandths advantage, but that dirty air doesn't seem to be hurting Goke at all there, Randy.
Yeah, his car might actually be it might feel more stable in the dirty air. I've noticed that the people we've seen getting loose have been ahead of other cars, not really behind anyone or really close behind anyone. So I wonder if that dirty air snugs the car up enough that they don't have to fight the car to keep it underneath them as well.
All cars still scored in the last lap. The last guy is Mark Redford in that number 31 machine. And he didn't have a bad qualifying, Aaron, but it looks as though that he really is struggling. We're only 30 laps into this race, and he'll probably be going down a lap before we get to our first round of pit stops.
Yeah, not the start he was probably hoping for. But again, gotta say it. It's one thing these drivers work on their qualifying setups, they work on their race setups. But one thing these drivers often do is they run 10, 15 laps, 30 laps straight green. It's going to be so different with the wind, with the tires, with the fuel fall off. It's very easy to have a setup that works great for 10 laps, but getting something that's going to go the full fuel run under green sometimes isn't the easiest of propositions to do.
And of course, this racetrack as well, it is physically demanding. If this race does go green for a long period of time, it really is going to take a lot out of these drivers because, again, the bumps, the fact that it's only got 14 degrees of banking, the other mile and a half that we normally race at, a minimum of 18 degrees banking. More realistically, we're looking at like the likes of 20 degrees at Vegas, 24 degrees at Charlotte, so a lot less banking him, and these cars have to use the wheel a lot more in the corners, Aaron.
And that's the thing that separates this track from, as you said, a Charlotte or a Vegas, and that's what makes this track so much more racy than those places, but that's what makes it more difficult. We said it at the beginning, they're most mile and a half cookie cutters, boring racing, just foot to the floor, hold the yellow line, no problem. This place isn't that way, and this track does have a lot of character with the bumps and they say 18 degrees, but wow, this track does feel flatter than that when you do drive it. It's really a good combination. This really I would say is almost like a mile-and-a-half version of Indy in a way. I mean, it's compressed a little bit more banking, but you have to be on your line every single time. It's so easy to push up into the wall out of 4 or to lose the rear.
And we saw Goat there pushing up dramatically out of turn number 2. And he was just getting himself at that point of the draft. And you're about 2.5 tenths behind. That's when you really close in and you get that extra speed. It does look as though that Goat's car just can't handle being right tucked up behind Dave Judson. He's fallen back once again to about half a second behind. It's one of those things right now that it's very difficult for these cars to try and pull off a pass. We've seen it more when drivers made mistakes, Randy, rather than, you know, from pure being able to close up and pass a guy.
Yeah, as a lot of people know, this IndyCar, the closer you get, the less and less front grip you have. So I think that's the closest he's been yet, and the car just got a little bit unexpectedly tight on him, and he just pushed and had to get out of it, which allowed George to catch up a little bit, and he lost some time, but not really, didn't lose too much, and we'll see if he can go back and reel back Dave Judson back in.
Before George got loose earlier, when Judson was closing in, the lap that George got loose, Judson hit a big patch of that dirty air and pushed up, which I think that's a problem Goak's having right now as well. I've seen him several times in 4. Looks like he'll have a run, and then all of a sudden the car just skates to the wall. So I think both Goak and Judson really don't like the dirty air. And I'm sure Judson right now is quite happy he has some clean air in front of him.
Tell you what, one guy who is actually closing up is Dave Jinks right now in the battle for the 7th position. He's closed up, and he's now in that dirty air. In fact, we were on board with him. We'll try and stay on board as we come through 1 and 2. You see a little bit of a wiggle there for Dave Jinks. However, he's been closing up to the rear of Eric Hunter consistently the last 5 or so laps, Randy. And now we're going to have an understanding if that broken arrow car, the number 76 machine, is working. He's being able to still hold it all the way down to the inside through turns number 3 and 4. And he is actually far superior to Hunter on that back end of the racetrack.
Yeah, he definitely looks like he can take the corners better than a lot of quite a few of these other cars. He's a little off the pace for some reason, though. I think he had an issue at the start, fell back, but he's definitely looking to reel in and get past Hunter as soon as possible here.
Nugotch has also been able to close up to the rear of Jonathan Goak, so it is now indeed a three-way battle for the 3rd position on the racetrack. The 3 cars are separated by just 7 tenths of a second on the racetrack. One other guy who is starting to close up is actually Randy Crosno to the rear of Matt Cook. That gap last time by was about 1.1 seconds on the racetrack. It's now come down to less than a second, as Matt Cook indeed did have some difficulties, Aaron, getting past lap traffic on Mark Redford.
Yeah, definitely, and Mark Redford did let him by, but for those couple laps that Cook was closing in, a huge slowdown. The lead was, I believe, well cut over in half, and now Crosno is going to the inside of Redford to get in front of him. Let's see, and even that lap with the pass, he gained another 10th, so now just 6 tenths separate our leaders. So I gotta wonder if Crosno's car is working better on a lighter load.
And also, let's not forget, Randolph, that Crosno is one of the best guys when it comes to pitting and strategy. We know that Matt Cook can be good. We know Judson and Goat can both be good. But in that battle up front, you've got to give, right now, the slight advantage coming into our first round of green flag pit stops, likely within the next 10 to 15 laps, to Crosno for the time being, if he can stick within that 1 second window now.
Yeah, we know he's better on pit road, and by the looks of it, he's better in traffic and getting through traffic as well. So if they stay green for any decent amount of time, we'll start getting points where Crosno really does shine, and it'll be really change the way this race looks.
Fuel window about 55 to 60 laps here at this racetrack. Of course, it does really change with this wind as well. It's moved to about a northeasterly wind now, and what that's going to do is it's going to allow these drivers to possibly save a little bit, because they're going to have to, you know, just lift a tiny part into turn number 1. As they do that, they're saving themselves just a tiny bit of fuel every single lap, and that might mean that that window can get closer to 60 laps than the 55 that we expected, Aaron.
Yeah, it's amazing how many, we could probably spend a whole 2 hours talking about just all the dynamics that the wind has changed, but fuel mileage is one of them, because half the track, they're not going to have to work as much. The other half, it's going to have to work harder, so that is going to throw another change. These drivers have as many races as everybody's ran, I mean, it's almost become robotic in nature, knowing how many laps you can run, what type of mileage, and essentially all those years of data have been thrown out the window with this change.
4 tenths per second, that battle for the race lead. We will turn our attention down to that battle that is continuing, however, between Eric Hunter and Dave Jinks, because it looks as though Dave Jinks has been able to get past Eric Hunter, so he moves himself now up into the centre position on the racetrack, which is a clean pass there, Randy. Finally being able to get past Eric Hunter, and it happened on the front end of the racetrack coming down into turn number 1.
Yeah, he's been, David been lapping faster than Hunter when we first were talking about him, and up until he made that pass, so he's probably happy to get past. And hoping he can stretch out a gap here and maybe start trying to push space down into Dennis Grease.
Yeah, and the Grease is about 3 seconds ahead of them on the racetrack. This field in some parts is getting spread out, but it's still a three-way battle. 3rd, 4th, and 5th position, Dave Judson, John Goke, and Gorg Nujox. And it does look as though that Goke is still struggling a little bit in that dirty air. Nujox is still able to stick to about 2 tenths per second behind Goke. His car does work a lot better in traffic compared to the clean air that he's running at the start of this race. And I think for Nujox right now, he knows that. Wants to get himself to that first round of pit stop time and make some changes to his car. But in dirty air, he knows that he's got something working well for him.
Oh, it's one thing to have one car in front of you with dirty air, but to have 2 cars and be able to hold... I haven't seen his car really skate up to the wall like Goke has, so his car is handling really well behind those 2 cars. So you know in this pit stop he's going to want to get in, get out cleanly, because I think he does have the fastest car of the 3 of them. But right now, his car's handling well in the dirty air, but just not well enough to be able to do anything with the 2 cars in front of him.
Gap for the race lead come down. Sorry, Randy, carry on.
I think George's setup is actually designed to run in the dirty air. We saw him a couple times when he was in clean air. He got really, really loose about 20 laps ago. And if he's running that loose setup, he's going to be able to run this dirty air a lot more than these other guys are able to.
Matt Cook has been able to have that gap closed to him by Randy Crosno now, down to less than 1/3 of a second. Crosno last time by a 24.982, this time by a 24.947. He's closed that gap now to just 2 tenths of a second on the racetrack. Crosno in that Coors Light machine all of a sudden is charging Aaron, and there's a couple of cars lap traffic ahead of him that they'll catch before this pit stop if they're unlucky, and that could be the chance for Crosno to make his move. We do know, however, that Crosno has probably been saving a bit of fuel. He wants to hopefully come into pit road 1 lap later than Matt Cook.
1 lap later for sure. And if the first time we had lap traffic is any indication, I do think Crosno, I think either missed his turn entry or hit a big patch of that dirty air.
And they're both coming in.
Pit stops.
Both coming in. And Crosno lost a little bit on that lap. He will be able to gain it at some point over the course of the next part of pit entry. Keeping an eye out on the speed. 45 miles an hour. Cook is down to that speed.
Oh, no, they get into each other.
Crosno has just turned around Matt Cook.
No.
And that was a little bit reminiscent of what Takuma Sato there did to Ryan Hunter-Reay at Pocono. And just like, he just flat ran into the rear of him there. Crosno will get himself a speeding penalty. He was able to get going faster. There's a little bit of damage to him. But meanwhile, Cook's car, he's been able to finally get it turned around. We're wondering if there's any damage, as also Goke is onto pit road, and Redford's on pit road as well.
I think Crosno just fell asleep. I think he thought the cones were later down in the pit lane, because these guys in the official sessions, they don't have to run that the infield like they do have to in this league. But with them running, having to go through on the backstretch or enter on the backstretch, it might have just threw a wrench into Crosno's thought process.
Crosno back out, so I don't know about the speeding penalty unless he's going to have to come back in, but Crosno back out in the lead.
So, we're going to keep an eye out to see how this is going to change things. As far as I'm concerned, Randy Crosno will come out way behind Matt Cook. He would have got himself a speeding penalty. Matt Cook is back out onto the racetrack. He's ahead of Mark Redford. We'll get confirmation of exactly who is where. Eric Hunter is just coming out of pit road, as is Bram Vanneman, as is Jonathan Goke. Randy Crosno does have a little bit of bending to his front wing, but we're going to have to see how that carries on. He might have got some repairs on his race car. Dave Judson's just coming out of pit road as we speak. Got to be very careful to hold that car on the inside line. But we're going to find out who's leading the way at some point very soon. And our standings are just still updating. And Krosno is still classified as the race leader, which is incredibly must have got himself a speeding penalty, unless he was actually able to use Matt Cook to slow him down.
I think that's what happened, because Krosno did have a very quick pit stop, so I don't think he got the black flag for speeding. So I guess that's using your teammate, I guess, to avoid the speeding penalty. But looking at Cook's car, I do think there is a little bit of suspension damage, as right now Dave Judson is going around the inside. But as I said, sometimes you have a race where you're dominating and you think, well, what could go wrong? And unfortunately for Matt Cook, it did go wrong.
Indeed, and that has dropped Matt Cook down into the third position. He has had a great battle the previous couple of laps with Dave Judson in that battle for second position. Matt Cook's fallen back to about 2 tenths, but he gets a better run out of turn number 2 that time by. He's not going to be quite close enough to make that move down to turn 3, but we talked about how Cook was having to find a way to get his car working in traffic. It does look a lot better this run, Randy.
Oh yeah, he's looking great in traffic right now, but I'm sure a lot of that is I'm sure he's not being as brave as he could be, considering what just happened getting on the pit road. He's not sure what the car is going to be doing, not sure how it's going to handle, not sure how it's going to change, and he's probably just kind of, I don't want to say sandbagging, but he's probably not giving it his all just to be safe.
And he is down to the inside once again of Dave Judson. He will complete that pass as we complete lap number 60 of 267 here at the Kentucky Speedway. And they're also closing that gap up to Randy Krosno at about a tenth of a second a lap.
About a tenth of a second a lap, and that was even with them passing each other. So also have to wonder if maybe there is some damage on Krosno, as he's running, let's see, he ran a 0.7 last time. This time he gets it together at 0.3 that time, compared to Cook's 0.2, so the gap continues to shrink.
And that could be the only bit of redemption that Matt Cook will get. He's been able to drop Dave Judson that lap. You talk about how he was possibly tiptoeing around on that inside line. The previous 2 laps, he's been able to pull away from Dave Judson about 3 tenths of a second a lap there. And now he is back on the charge. And this Canadian driver is on a mission to try and close back up to the race leads. We're going to quickly turn our attention to Eric Hunter and Eric Laval, the 2 Erics doing battle for 7th position, Aaron.
That they are, and also want to make note, Jonathan Goke is being shown 3 laps down, so something happened to him, possibly on the
out of the race.
Yeah, so we'll need to figure out what happened there, but the 2 Erics are going at it. They're now side by side going into turn 3 with Eric Hunter on the outside and Laval to the inside, trying to make the pass. He's going to hold tough on the inside, which... wow, I didn't think he'd get the run he did on the inside as they go off into turn 1.
So, battle for the race lead down to 5.8 seconds on our racetrack. You have Jonathan Goke, our first retiree of the day in that 08 car, and that's surprising because Goke has historically been good at Kentucky. We get word that he had a speeding penalty. It was a speeding penalty, and also he came back onto the racetrack. He had 2 wheels above that yellow line, so race control gave him a penalty for that. And I think that he just pulled his car into pit road out of frustration there.
Oh, when things go bad, it's so easy to make a mistake and then make a second mistake, and then it's just so hard to get back in the game once you get a penalty like that, especially with a race that's gone green the way it has been.
Battles.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when it rains, it pours. We went, what, 50 laps with almost no real incident, and then pit stops happen, and it just seems everything starts going wrong for almost all the front runners there.
But we've still got that freeway battle going on between Laval, Hunter, and now Brian Bannerman's getting involved in the action as well. And this is that thing, if you have 2 cars going too wide, the car on the inside is having to slow down to avoid brushing up, and of course it's so difficult to turn that car down there. Car on the outside taking the long way around. This has allowed Bannerman to close up by about a tenth of a second a lap, and he is right there making a freeway battle for 7th through 9th positions on the racetrack, Aaron.
This is a great battle. The drivers are giving a lot of respect for each other. Eric, let's see, I need to get my Eric straight. Eric Laval, yeah. Laval a couple times has had Hunter on the outside, and Laval has pushed up, but Hunter has respected that and has given him plenty of room. So this is a great battle, and the two drivers are definitely respecting each other right now, which is good to see. And they haven't gone side by side for a while, so now Bram is slightly falling back, but the next time they go side by side, I expect Bram to be right back up there.
So to run through your top 5 then, it's Randy Crosney with a 4.6 second gap over Matt Cook. He's losing time all the way around the racetrack. We'll come back to that story in a moment. Dave Judson, 3rd. Gord Knudox in 4th, and Dennis Grease rounds out your top 5. And the past 10 laps, Judson has lost 3 seconds to Matt Cook. Randy Crosney has lost about a second to Matt Cook. So it does look as though that Crosney is struggling, and that potentially could be from that bent front wing that he got in that contact with Matt Cook. We don't think they changed it on that first pit stop. They're possibly going to want to change it on that second stop, because Crosney really is losing a lot of time right now.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm not surprised with how Matt Cook was able to open the gap to Dave Judson. I am surprised how quickly that Randy is losing time to Matt. Because we saw in that first run there that Randy was really the only one that could keep up with Matt at all. So I'm surprised that Matt's reeling in him as quickly as he is.
And it looks as though that any damage that we thought could have occurred to that number 6 car was no issue. The thing is, it did take Matt a lot of time to get that car turned around on pit road, especially as other cars were coming in. So that's what put him 6 seconds back. And I'm telling you what, Bram Vanneman is really driving on rails now in that 4 car. He was almost 4-wheel drifting that through turn number 2, Randy.
Yeah, I think he wants to get past the Eric duet that's going on in front of him. He sees them battling hard, he sees them fighting hard, and he thinks, you know what? These guys are using their cars up. I haven't really been doing it all race. Let's see if I can make something happen. And he's trying to.
Oh!
Eric gets into the wall. Oh, and that's gonna make Bram. That's gonna make his heart rate increase and probably rethink his idea about possibly getting by there.
And Laval, I think, just bounced it off the wall out of 4, possibly.
Yeah, so both the drivers are struggling. They both right-ruled the safety barrier there. Does look as though they didn't get any damage from it, and it's one of those things at Kentucky. If you hit it at the perfect angle, you just bounce back off. You don't harm the suspension pieces. Both of them were very lucky to do it just as that safety barrier stopped turning and went flat. But you see now down to the inside, Eric Hunter on Eric Laval. Laval is struggling, so he might have some damage. You see Hunter goes past, and it looks as though that Van was going to try and slow it down the inside as well. So they come down into turn number 1 and 2. Not quite going to be close enough, but Van was going to get the turn. A big wiggle by him as they come out of the second corner on the racetrack. But it does look as though Laval might have got a little bit of side damage there, and he's going to have to try and coax that car back to pit road.
Yeah,
his car's unsettled.
Yeah, he's definitely got some side pod damage. Definitely got some front wing damage. Whereas Hunter's car looked pretty much perfectly clean. Didn't even scratch the paint. Sponsors will be happy about that one.
Indeed, yeah. Working ourselves now on lap number 75. We are being green all the way in this, the ISOWC Kentucky 400. A big difference to what was the situation last year. A race filled with cautions then, a race with no cautions this time around. Matt Cook led this race in pole position. He led the entire first stint before he came onto pit road when he was almost spun around there by Randy Crosney. Crosney gets the race lead. They are looking at the incident. They said that they'll probably hand out any penalties after the race to Randy Crosney, if indeed there are any. A new penalty point system introduced for the ISOWC as well now. But third position, Gord Knudox is now being able to get past Dave Judson. Judson's fallen back big time on this run.
And that's really shocking. As they exited the pits, the first 4 laps on this stint, he was the fastest car on the track. He was catching Randy Crosney, and now all of a sudden he is losing just massive amounts of time. And now Dennis Garisa's, he may fall into
there's contact.
Just got tagged in the rear a little bit there by Dennis Garisa. I'm having a look to see whether there's any damage to Garisa's race car. No, there isn't, but that was a very, very close call, Randy.
Oh yeah, Will, you just commented that there were no yellows coming out, but you guys, it seems like these guys really are trying to bring one out.
They're doing everything they can to get the flagman to throw that yellow, and we've got cars hitting each other, cars bouncing off the wall. Quite a bit of action the past 10 laps or so.
Yeah, I'm having a look from Judson's car, and it does look as though he might have hit the wall We're getting word that it was probably around lap number 60, which is why he dropped back so substantially. I'm having a look to his car, and there is just a little bit of a crumple there, indicating that he might have hit the wall. It's close as they go through 1 and 2 there, Aaron.
Oh, close, and it's one thing to have this track is difficult enough without damage. You get a little bit of damage, and this track just gets harder and harder. The bumps become more pronounced. The wall seems to be even closer, and it's going to be a long, about 190 laps for Dave Judson now, as that car, Dave Jenks is going to get him right here, I think.
Yeah, he'll come down to the inside. And for Dave Judson, of course, he is the championship leader, Andy, coming into this race. Now, Dennis Gariz was the one guy who's closest to him in the championship. Gariz has been the king of the roadside. Dave Judson is more being the oval specialist this season. But he's losing out big points. And don't forget, we split the season into 3 mini-seasons. And this is the start of, you know, that 9-week campaign. They don't score points in the Indy 500, but for everywhere else, 9-week campaign. Judson wanted to make it a clean sweep, and this is the one that you have more ovals and road courses as well, a ratio of 5 to 4, and this is just not going well for him to start this mini-season.
Yeah, I have a feeling that these new conditions, we've been talking about it, but I'm going to mention it again, that a lot of these conditions are really throwing a wrench into everyone. He may be more used to the static conditions that iRacing service used to have, and maybe Gariz is able to maybe being more of a road specialist, he can adapt maybe a little bit better than Judson is able to, and just coping with it better. Not really sure, but like you said, it hasn't been the greatest start for him.
So
and Judson gets real loose in turn 1.
He's struggling. He really, really is struggling right now. In fact, we're going to have his lap times as well. At the start of this race, he was doing lap times within the 25.4 region, dropped down to 25.2s. Last time by he did a 26.1. He's about 0.2 of a second slower. But the thing is, it's the consistency as well for him right now, Aaron. That he's just not having that consistency, and he have one good lap, and then that car will just want to snap out on him. And it does look as though he really just hasn't got momentum going for him at the moment.
No, not at all. I do think there is something consistent about his car, and that's every time in 1 and 2, the car wants his race over. If you watch him in turns 1, it is on with a little wiggle there once again. So I don't know if he's going to be able to hang on to that car for 190 more laps. That car is just almost out of control in turns 1 and 2.
And of course, turn 1 and 2 is where we've had the issues all race long with that infamous win. We'll come back to that in just a couple of moments, because Matt Cook has closed that gap now to less than 2 seconds in the battle for the race lead. And that's come down from 6 seconds in the space of half a stint. And Randy Krosno is still about a 10th of a lap slower than Matt Cook. By the time we get to our second round of pit stops, Cook is going to be close enough to almost repay that favour to Krosno, Randy.
Yeah, just maybe a little teammate love, just Matt repaying the favor back to Randy. But then again, Randy is losing that 10th per lap. I think Matt may think better of it.
It seems when something like that happens, you can get a little bit, a little bit angry, a little bit upset, and some drivers will drive over their heads. Other drivers will get into another mode and just click off amazing lap after amazing lap and just get to a level of consistency that they normally can't do. So, I don't know, maybe in a way getting kicked in the rear like that sort of kicked Matt into overdrive.
So do you think Matt was screaming multi-21 on the scanner after Randy hit him?
I don't know, but the thing is, both these drivers have things to gain and lose in this race. As I say, for Matt Cook, he wanted to get himself the chance to race in the 2013 ISOWC Racer Champions. For Randy Krosno, he's still not out of the championship battle just yet. We'll update that in just a moment, but that gap is now within draft range for Matt Cook, less than 1 second on the racetrack.
And lap traffic about to come into play. Randy Krosno has both Bram and Eric Hunter in front of him, so we don't really know how Randy's car does behind traffic. We know Matt Cook's car did not like cars in front of him, and he's about to have 3 cars in front of him right here, so going to be interesting to see how he copes with the understeer.
Yeah, and that's going to be the difficult thing for Krosnow as well. And I think he struggled behind this lap traffic on this stint. He was very good behind Cook at the start of the race. Does seem as though he's clearly faster than these guys ahead of him. He's just not catching them at the right places, and the air just not coming across the car at the right time. He's going to get past one of them. That is Brian Vanneman right now. Going to go one lap down on the racetrack. And Matt Cook, he's now down to half a second behind. And oh, look at this, Randy Krosnow, and they almost had the touch.
Oh, no.
And both of our leaders into the wall. Caution will be out here.
Oh, no.
Something happened to Randy Krosnow, and he slowed down in the middle of the racetrack, and Cook just had nowhere to go. He was already off the gas, and the two AeroX teammates take themselves out of the race.
I have no idea what just happened to Krosnow.
Teamwork, arguably, at its best. And Gorg Nudrox as well. He looks as though he's slow, so he might have got involved in something there as well. Whether or not he's just waiting to catch a field. In fact, yeah, I think the Nudrox is just waiting to catch a field. Of course, he will inherit the race lead now, as Max Cook's car is all over the place. Eric Laval is slowing down for the pace car. Huge change of events here. Matt Cook's car is toast. He's going to try and get some repairs to it by the look of it. But Randy Krosnow, he was on that second lane. He just got past that lap traffic. I think that car just stepped out on him a little bit. He tried to save it. Matt Cook, nowhere to go.
Well, I had just said, let's see how his car handles with the lap traffic, and having the car, Bram was really up high, but he went from a whole lot of understeer to a car on his outside and a car in front of him. Obviously that car didn't like that, did not like that at all. Yeah,
and Krosnow, it's just been his second incident of the day here. We're going to get ourselves a couple of replays after pit stops commence, because these guys are bringing their cars down the pit road to get some service. Gorg Nudrox is bringing his car onto pit road, as is Dennis Grease. Dave Jinks coming onto pit road, as well as Dave Judson, Eric Hunter, Brian Vanneman. They're all onto pit road. Randy Krosnow is sat on pit road at the moment, and Judson just knocks over the cone there as well. But first caution of the day, and that's a game changer after working 90 laps or so green. They also now are just about inside of that window to make it without having to take a splash at the end of the race, Aaron.
Yep, and one thing, I almost get sick of saying it, but it's never too early to start planning for the end of the race, and you know, these drivers are calculating. Dave Judson always seems to be a person which, we'll see, maybe he can make a setup change that maybe they can get his car repaired a little bit, maybe he can make a change to counteract that minor damage he has, but wow, what a turn of events. And I'm watching the replay, and it looks, I'm trying to figure out what happened to Krosnow, and the wheels are turned and the car's not turning, so very,
yeah.
I don't know, something just doesn't look right with that.
Yeah, it almost looks like a hardware issue to me, because you see him go into the corner and he's got, the speed is there and the car in front of him, but he's a ways up, but he's got a ton of wheel input. It almost just looks like a hardware issue that...
He caught the seam. I'm just having a look, and he caught the seam in between the second and the third lanes. And as soon as he caught that, you could see the rear end of the car just start to step out. And of course, the way that you try and save these cars, you just get off the gas, trying to stabilize that car. He lost about 30 miles an hour in speed there, Alan. But the seams are also dangerous at Kentucky.
That they are, and just as he had it gathered up, he did have, as he gathered it up, his wheels were still turned, and unfortunately, when the car finally got grip, that's where Matt Cook was. And I think that's the first time Randy in traffic had entered. He entered really low, making the pass on the lapped car, so that was probably the first time he had been that low, deviating from his normal line, and oh, what an unfortunate time for, gotta feel bad for Matt Cook after reeling back so much, and all of a sudden, just to have it taken away like that once again. Oh, man.
So, Gorg Nudrox is your race leader. Dennis Carisse in second. Dave Jinks in third. Eric Hunter fourth. Brian Brown, and they are your top five. Then you have Dave Judson, Eric Cavell, Mark Redford, Matt Cook, Randy Crosno are out of the race, as is Jonathan Goke. So hugely upsetting there for Randy Crosno. He's in agony about that. Matt Cook's car is on pit road. He's trying to see if he can get some repairs done to that race car. He's currently scored 1 lap down. Gorg Newjox, however, is your race leader, and all of a sudden, from nowhere, Vortex are running 1 and 2. We know how loose those 2 cars can be at the start of the run, though, Randy.
Yeah, these cars have been, especially after a run like that, although they did just get tires, like you said, on these restarts. We saw it at the very start of the race, too. The starts are pretty sketchy.
And not only that, we have a couple cars out there that have made contact with the wall, so if you have suspension that's bent just a little bit, oh, these restarts, as exciting as they were on the initial start, this restart, I'm glad I'm not in some of those cars out there. It's going to be, I think, a pedal fest as wheel spin's going to come into play.
And the lights are still on the pace car. This is kind of surprising. We've been under caution for a good couple of laps now, and the lights are still on the pace car. This is a longer caution than we normally expect to see, Randy.
Yeah, it just might be because of where the caution came out, where the leaders caught the pace car, or where third place caught the pace car, really. But not really sure why. But yeah, it looks like it's an extra lap. I'd imagine it should turn off at the end of this lap, though. And even the drivers on the scanners, I hear them, they're talking about it.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out on this right now. But Dave Jinks in that 3rd position, his car was very good at parts of that run. Of course, we knew the issues that happened to Eric Cavell, which put him 1 lap down, but Eric Hunt in that 4th position as well. He's still got a good chance of getting himself into a podium position, Aaron.
That he does, and he's he really hasn't had a point in time where he was able to just drive his car without cars around him. So now, with the unfortunate issue with Cook and Crosno, he is going to be further up the field, and we know his car handles with cars in front of him. He's been in dirty air the entire race, so now that he's closer to the front, we'll see if maybe he can, you know, hang with Grease and our leader.
The important thing is, for Dennis Grease, he is ahead of Dave Judson. He has a lot of work to do in this mini-season. He was going to try and close up that championship gap. The lights are now off on the pace car, so we're going to go back to green flag racing this time by. However, Dennis Grease, he needs those points. Dave Judson has had 4 wins in the last mini-season compared to 2 wins for Dennis Grease, and then Thomas Dern a couple of wins. But for Judson, he needs to get himself going. He needs to find a way back past Dennis Grease. But this is the lifeline that I don't think he ever thought he might have had happening to him. We're going to find out what happens in the next 170 laps here at Kentucky Motor Speedway. End of our first caution period of the day, which took out Randy Crosno and Matt Cook, waiting for that pace car to make it strip back down towards pit road in a couple of moments. And Newjox, Grease, who do you think is going to come out on top of those 2?
Oh, it's anyone's game. I mean, if you look at it, like 20 minutes ago, we were talking about George Newjox, and he was almost losing the car and was battling for 5th. 20 minutes later, some things happened. Suddenly, he's leading the field. Anything can happen. It's anyone's game.
And racing, you never know.
And restarts can be oh so treacherous here at Kentucky. ISOWC and Kentucky, we know just how scary restarts can be. We saw Matt Cook almost binned it at the start of this race on pole position. We saw back in 2012 the drama that unfolded on the last restart of the day. We're going to get another restart here at Kentucky as that pace car comes onto pit road, and Gordon Newjox begins to build up the pace. He's doing a long late start here. This could be interesting. And now the green flag is back out in the air, and we are back to racing here. Grease falls into 2nd. Dave Jinks is still there in 3rd position. Hunter gets a slow start, and Dave Judson, a bit of a sluggish start for him as well. But we know how good Judson's car was in those first couple of laps.
Judson made a pass as the green came out, and then had some wheel spin. So he could have had an amazing start, but
to the race lead, Dave Jinks has been able to get past both Gordon Newjox and Dennis Grease on that opening lap. Dave Jinks has moved himself from 3rd into 1st.
What a power start.
Yeah, Dennis and George didn't look very confident on that start, and I think Dave was just like, you know, I'm pretty confident in my ability that my car's going to be planning. I'm just going to go for it, and it worked for him.
And meanwhile, Judson is under a little bit of attack from Eric Laval in the number 32 car. He will need to keep that position, getting a little bit sideways, but it is now Dave Jinks scored as your race leader. Gorg Nudrox in second, Dennis Grease in third, and Eric Hunter rounds out the top 4 positions. And it is now very close up front, because we knew how close Nudrox, Jinks, Grease, and Hunter were in the first part of this race. We've got a nice 4-way battle now, potentially for the race lead, and Hunter looking very racy behind Grease.
That he is, and I have to wonder, remember, earlier in the race, it looked like George's car didn't like the clean air. You got to wonder, maybe since he knew he was going to become the leader, if he made changes to help his car out in front, and now that he's not out in front, those changes were moot.
Possibly, although then again, we really didn't get to see long enough to find that out, because Dave Jinks did get by very, very quickly after that start. They weren't quite up to speed, but yeah, maybe we'll have to see.
Starts and restarts can be oh so interesting, and of course we talk about the treacherous nature of it. On this track though, when passing has been difficult, not in the conga line sense of things that people just hold the inside line, and the fact that cars are struggling in that dirty air, Jinks capitalised before those cars were back up to full speed, Aaron, and the perfect opportunity to do it. He's about 4 tenths per second now clear of Nudrox, who has his teammate Dennis Grease all over the rear of him at battle for second position.
I think one thing we should mention, Dave Jinks qualified 9th, almost 4 tenths of a second off the pole, and now he's leading this race. So,
impressive.
As mentioned, drivers are going to stay ahead of the weather change, going to make changes throughout the race, and obviously to go from 4 tenths of a second off pole to leading this race and starting to inch away. I wouldn't say pull away, he's starting to inch away as now George closes in, but impressive so far. There's nothing else that can be said, just impressive.
And these guys are going to have to
he does get in the wall on the backstretch. Sorry to interrupt you, Will, but Dave Jinks did scrape the wall coming out of turn 2 there. It'll be interesting to see if that did anything.
Yeah, and it's still very close between these drivers. And we have seen a couple of guys white wall the safety barrier here. And of course, the way it works is that, if I said earlier, if you hit it flat, you're okay. If you really come off the corner and go into it, that's when the trouble really starts for him. And let's not forget, Judson was struggling earlier on because he hit the wall. We have got word from pit road that he has been able to get some repairs done to that car. However, he's still a little bit off the pace, and we've still got an interesting battle with Nordrux and Grease, however.
As you just mentioned, Judson, he had a big wiggle off of 4, which we haven't seen too many cars wiggle in 4, so it may be better, but that car is still trying to bite him hard.
It really is, and this is that stage of the race as well, where Nudrox, about 10 laps into a run, was when Nudrox's car was at its scariest to drive, and Grease is all over the rear of him. I think actually Grease wants to get past just in case Nudrox does slap these, and of course you don't want the 2 Vortex drivers taking themselves out in the same way that we saw the 2 Aero X drivers taking themselves out early on in this race.
George might have just nipped it. I wouldn't say he hit it, but he might have just nipped it. But yeah, this might be the race. Teammates need to stay away from each other. That's been the lesson so far in this race.
Yeah, the way it's looking so far, there's going to be the race of wind and the race of friendly fire.
So we still have ourselves 6 cars scored on the lead lap. Eric Laval is scored 1 lap down, but is faster than Dave Judson right now. About a tenth of a second slower than Dave Jinks. If we get another caution, Laval might be able to use strategy to get himself back onto the lead lap. Mark Redford is scored a lap down. He's a couple of tenths slower than anyone else on the racetrack, but still scored in that 8th position, as we now have 110 laps going to be scored complete at the line here in the ISOWC Kentucky 400. What we have got right now, however, though, is a fascinating battle, because Jinks isn't able to pull away from Nudrox at all, and Grease isn't able to find a way past Nudrox. I'm going to say, if Grease can get himself up into 2nd position, there is a good chance he could battle for that race lead.
I would think Grease might have the fastest car of the 3. You really have to have a strong car to hang with 2 cars in front of you with the dirty air, and his car is just the dirty air doesn't seem to be upsetting. He just just can't seem to cut it off before. I guess I did notice the dirty air in 3 and just see him have to turn just a little bit, excuse me, a little bit more than the cars in front of him. But I think he might have the strongest car of our top 3.
Yeah, he's definitely closing that gap a lot through the corners as he pokes his nose on the inside going into turn 3 there, but thinks better of it.
If he's going to want to make that pass, he really is going to have to run a different line than what he's doing in 3. I think I think he's stronger in 1 and 2. Just can't get close. He's losing a little bit in 3, and he makes it all up right here. And is he going to go for it right now? No.
I don't know, but it's very, very, very close. And Garis, and the thing is right now, Garis is losing time here, being stuck behind Newjocks. And you see that say 2 very different lines down in front straight away. And I think for Newjocks, I don't know. It's like he's got consistent speed, but Garis is clearly faster. And again, on that backstretch run, he gains a ton of time. If he can just keep turn 3 going, that's the way he's struggling a bit in turn 3. He's going to get a much better run this time, though.
Yeah, it's on entry in 3 that he's losing everything. I like what he's doing in 1. He's really trying to stay just a groove on the outside, and now a groove on the inside. He's going to get it right here.
So
he's up to 2nd.
Yeah, he's got himself up into that 2nd position. Now he's going to see whether he can charge down Dave Jinks. He's lost himself about 4 tenths of a second over the past 5 laps, though, Randy, being stuck behind his teammate. Now, for Dennis Garis, it's going to have to be go time.
Yeah, this is where we're going to be able to find out if he really does have the car that we were talking about and the fastest in the top 3. It was obviously faster than George, but we have to see if he's faster than Dave. And now that he's in front of George, we're really going to see if that's the case.
I do
if someone
George
gets into the
did
wall.
Let him by.
Well, they are teammates, and if he is faster, generally, I mean, 120 laps into the race, that wouldn't be really surprising to me at all. Especially in a race where we've already had 2 teammates of another team take each other out, and and let's be honest, it's not like it's out of Dennis's head that George was having troubles earlier on.
Yeah, and that's because Garis actually has not been able to close that gap up to Dave Jinks. It's now up to, well, it came down about 10 to a second like last time by, so Garis is back within draft range. But Dave Jinks in that 76 car, he's pretty much been, he's the veteran of the ISOWC. He's raced in pretty much every single ISOWC race in history, bar I think 2. He's only ever had 1 win to his name, but has always been consistently good at him. Ran as a privateer for a number of years in the IndyCar before joining Broken Arrow about a year ago. And still, Jinks is looking very strong. He's able to hold off Dennis Garis, and we know how good Garis is at this racetrack.
Yes, we do. And yeah, Jinks is one of those consistent drivers. There's many different types of drivers, and there's some drivers that are gonna be really good in qualifying. You get them in the race, and they're gonna find trouble in many different ways. Jinks' qualifying time shows that he's one of those consistent drivers, and over a longer run, those drivers often are gonna be, might not win the most races, but they're gonna be consistent. They're gonna be up there, and they're gonna be up there. And when other people have issues, they may be able to capitalize. And right now, Jinks is in that position to capitalize.
For Garis, you have to say though, I thought when he's stuck behind Newjocks, his car is working very well in clean air. I think that's a bit of an issue right now with the Vortex drivers overall. Their cars do not work that well in clean air. And Randy, we talked about this at the start of the broadcast. The fact that, you know, you had Matt Cook, his car was perfect running out front. Struggled a little bit in dirty air. But Garis's car is perfect in dirty air, not running as well when he's by himself. And I don't think he's just got that raw speed to close down Dave Jinks. If he gets close enough to him, gets into that draft zone, and that's going to be about 4 tenths of a second away before he can do that. He needs to close that gap still. Then I think we've got a fight for a race lead.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as to say that his car doesn't work in the clean air. I just think that his car might just work better on the short runs, because we saw him all over the back of George at the start, But as the last came on, he started hounding George less and less and less, and he managed to get by it. Now as we're seeing, even though he looked pretty racy, and as Graham Hill would have said, she's got some poke, it seems to have died off.
It's died off for the time being, but that gap continues to come down. Behind them, Eric Hunter has fallen back about 3 seconds on that pack, so really is now just a 3-car race in that battle for the race lead. Eric Hunter in that 99 car, his times are consistent, but it does look as though that he can't hang out with these top 3 drivers once they're able to break away early on that run, Aaron.
That is most certainly correct, and both Eric Hunter, Eric Lavelle, and Dave Judson they got about a second between them each, maybe a little bit more. But those 3 drivers are really just on an island of their own right now, not really having anybody to race in. The way we saw, well, I guess Eric Lavelle is a lap down, but they're behind each other on the track, which it's unfortunate Lavelle got a lap down because he is running times just as fast as the cars around him. And I don't know strategy-wise if he is going to be able to get that lap back.
I'm not quite sure, and I think the longer this race goes green, the more difficult it's going to be for Eric Lavelle. He would have needed a caution probably be by now to be able to try and do that split strategy. Of course, as I said, all of these guys won't need to make that splash and dash at the end, so there's no way that Lavelle will be able to try and save fuel or use strategies to get back into his advantage if this race stays green. A caution might help him, but he needs a caution really within the first 25 laps. We talked about how restarts are so treacherous and how also tyre can really come into play at this racetrack. Lavelle could have tried to take the risk. Of course, if he got his lap back, he'd been at the rear end of the field anyway, so he would have been able to take it easy on that restart on those older tyres. I think right now he might still be that 1 lap down for a foreseeable future. The only issue could be, of course, some other guys. If they mess up on pit road, they'll end up a lap down with him.
And the way this race has gone, we have seen some pit road errors, so that is not out of the question at all.
Oh, pit road errors completely undermines anything you've seen. Pit road errors is missing a lug. We've seen way worse than that.
So, 129 laps of this race score complete as we move ourselves towards half race distance. About an hour, just over an hour of this race has been clocked up. Dave Jenks is still your race leader. Dennis Grease is closing him down in that battle for the race lead. Gordon Newjock's in 3rd, Eric Hunter in 4th, and Dave Judson rounds out your top 5. Let's turn our attention to Dave Judson a little bit, because it does look as though he is still struggling with those issues that plagued him after he whitewalled the safer barrier on about lap number 60. His lap times have been a lot more stable on this run, but it's still a bit of variance here and there. He does some incredibly good times. He did a 25.326, which is actually one of the fastest laps of the cars out there, but then he falls back down into 7s and 8s again.
That car is trying to bite him. That car, he may get a good lap in, but if you want to see a driver that is just working his tail off to keep his position, right now it's Dave Judson, because that car it has a mind of its own. It is squirrely. I've seen him get loose in turn 4, which typically it's been in turn 1. The car will get tight in 1. It's really almost doing something different every lap, and the fact that he's been able to hang on to it is a testament to just how strong of a driver he is.
But someone gets loose off it too and spins behind him.
Yeah, out, and that's Mark Redford, and he's going to keep the car out of the way. He keeps the car off the racetrack for the time being. He will be able to put it down to the apron. We might just about stay green here. He's going to try and bring that car back towards pit road, but this is Mark Redford, who scored 1 lap down, and he is going to struggle to bring that car back onto pit road. And in fact, it looks like the caution has come out for that, just because we are getting close to that window for pit stops. We didn't want it to be in such a way that I don't think race control wanted it to be in such a way. If any car comes on pit road like he's doing that sort of speed on the apron, that could have been very dangerous, Aaron.
Yeah, definitely a good call by race control there, especially the way if you enter, it can sort of be blind. You can't see around the corner, and have a car doing 20 miles an hour trying to get back to the pits really not in control as Redford's once again off the track. That car, I think his race has been ran, but definitely a good call there. You don't want to have a risk like that.
Replay up on your screen, and Randolph, it's one of those things, and we've seen a number of drivers save it for Redford, just wasn't able to do so.
Yeah, not everyone can save it all the time, but you know who's really feeling good about that right now? Veneman, because he was right there next to Redford as he spun. I mean, it was a matter of inches. I'm sure Veneman, for a moment there, was like, well, my race is over. And then now it's just not, and he's just thanking whoever he decides he wants to thank that he's still in that race.
Yep, Redford's car pretty much is going to be done. He's going to retire from this race. Laval, this is going to be interesting. Will he try and find a way of staying out here just to get himself back on the lead lap for the time being, Aaron, do you think?
I think you have to, because either way he's going to be a lap down. If he pits, he's guaranteed to be a lap down. If he stays out, he'll get the wave around. Yeah, if he has to pit in 10 laps, he's still going to be a lap down either way. I think you got to take the gamble. And,
Pit stops
George
underway.
misses his stall.
Yeah, and it looks as though Vanneman was able to get out well of everyone, and it's very interesting pit exit here because of the way this the cars work. They come down for jacks, they can get so much wheel spin, but it does look as though Dave Jinks was able to get out ahead of everyone else. Eric Laval hasn't come to pit road, but of course lap cars will have to wait until this lap before they can make that journey. Dennis Garise comes out second in line, Dave Judson third in line, and you are right, Gorg Nujox lost a big amount of time there. He falls to the last car on the lead lap.
Oh, that's just disastrous. I think he overshot his stall and had to back up, so we'll see how his car handles with a lot of dirty air now. His car has been stronger behind cars than in front, and now he's going to have to put that to the test.
So, Jinx still leads away from Dennis Garise, and now Judson's up into that third position. Single file restarts, of course, here in the ISOWC. That means that all of these cars, they cannot pass on the inside. And that's almost what happened to Judson, I believe, on that last green flag run. What we also know is that Jinx got that amazing start on that last restart, but we know how good Garise can be on these restarts as well. Very interesting. You see, normally all these guys pin it up to the outside wall, but when they put the accelerator down, it's so easy to just spear that car to the left and come all the way down this racetrack, Randy. Oh
yeah, this restart is going to be really, really interesting. I mean, you got all the lead lap guys who are going to be fighting for position on their new tires, and you have Laval, who may not necessarily, his mindset may not be get past people, it may just be more of a, I just want to survive, but he's going to be out there on old tires, and it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be a handful.
The thing Laval's going to be thinking is, come on, somebody go for it. Wheel spin, wheel spin, wheel spin. He's going to want to see a car spin to the infield. You know, you don't really want to, you don't really want to hope for the misfortune of others, but right now, he's going to need a quick caution to stay on the lead lap.
And yeah, that was the thing for Eric Laval. Now, we're working ourselves on lap number 136, and I am doing the math. And if Laval's next pit stop is probably going to be in the region of lap 150, that means that he would have to make 2 more pit stops pretty much to get himself to the end of the race. He'll be about 4 laps short. Everyone else is going to have to make a splash of fuel at the end of the race. So for Laval, if you play strategy for the rest of the race, he might be able to stay on that lead lap, but 120 odd laps to do that is going to be very tough for him to do. At the same time, all of these other guys, you know, they are going to have to think long game now, and it's that sort of thing, Aaron, that towards the end of the race, you might have a couple of drivers, rather than take a fuel tank of fuel, they might try and take 2, maybe 17, 18 gallon tanks, and split it that way, so just so it can be faster with those new tyres.
Oh, so many strategies are about to be played, and you know these drivers, their teams, they're going to be a lot of talk going on as Eric Laval is getting the wave around. A lot of talk, so many different strategies that could play out. And what we've seen, I think if you're in the lead lap right now, you have a chance to win this race. We have seen leaders take each other out, cars bounce off the wall. No telling who wins this race.
We've even had wind. And it has been a crazy race, like you said. I mean, just about almost anything you'd ask for from such a small field is pretty crazy.
And of course, Aaron, we've still got a number of races broadcast here on GlacierTV this year for the ISOWC. Starting in 2 weeks' time with the ISOWC Racer Champions. The way that works, any guy who scored themselves a win or finish in the top 5 of any season granted entry to the ISOWC Racer Champions. 2 weeks after that, we have ourselves the iRacing.com, not the iRacing.com, the ISOWC Indy 500 live here on GlacierTV. And we'll talk a little bit more about that race once we go back to Green Flag Racing. And then, of course, the season finale, which venue to be confirmed. It's either going to be at Fontana if we get it in time. If not, it will be a repeat of the ISOWC Michigan 600. Dave Jinks leads away from Dennis Garise, from Dave Judson. Yeah, are your top 3 drivers at the end of our second caution at the day. This one caused by Mark Redford, who had a single car spin, damaged his car, and is now out of the race. Dave Jinks is waiting to pick up that pace. Now he does. Green flag back in the air. Garise gets a little bit sluggish on the restart. That allows Judson to try and close up. Judson didn't get a good start himself either there. But look at Garise. He's all over the rear of Dave Jinks as they head it back down into turn number 2. Garise, if you can try that outside line, might just be able to get something. Wasn't good enough in the corner, however. And looks like that Jinks is just about able to hold on.
He's able to hold on, and I think if Garise wants us to lead the first couple laps, is the time to do it. Good to see Dave Judson third. We'll see how his car handles in the dirty air, but Garise is going to peer to the outside, nothing doing as they enter turn 1.
Yeah, Garise definitely knows that his car was better on the short run at the last yellow, and now that he's there with George not in the way, he's going to be trying to take full advantage of it.
So, Jinx able to get that advantage. One of the things that we did talk about in that last run, however, is if Garise could stay close to Dave Jinx, so in that half-second range, then he'd be very, very strong. You see, he's already pulling to the outside. He doesn't want to use all that dirty air down into turn 1. That's where you really get that horrible push effect if you're stuck right behind another car. But Dave Judson's, of course, going to fall off the pace pretty quickly. In fact, we're going to turn our attention to him and Eric Hunter for the time being because, of course, Hunter was faster than Judson on that last run. We know that Judson has some issues once that fuel starts going down, so Hunter's going to be all over the rear of Judson within the next 4 or 5 laps, I'm going to say.
That he is, and don't count out Bram either. Bram is hanging with Eric Hunter as well, and
oh, Judson! Judson hits the wall there, coming out of turn number 2. And it was at the worst point you could hit it, and I'm not sure just how much damage he has. He's able to carry on, but this has allowed Hunter to catch back up to the rear of him, and another time perhaps our championship leader Dave Judson dodged a bullet.
How many lives does he have?
Oh, he's going around.
Oh, he hits Hunter into the wall as well.
Oh, unfortunate for our championship leader, but at the same time, Eric Laval got through, so, you know, he's smiling, but, oh, unfortunate for Eric Hunter.
So, Dave Judson spins out of the race after running in 3rd position, our 3rd caution of the day, here in the ISOWC Kentucky 400, and we've pretty much got no one left now, Randolph, so we're going to have to start talking about wind again soon.
Yeah, we got to start talking about either wind or maybe some whatever moonshine the Kentucky rednecks have been drinking, but who really knows? But actually, we do have something to talk about. You know who's loving this caution? Eric Laval.
Yep, he is back on to the lead lap. So it did work out for him in that KFC number 32 Vortex racing car.
Wow,
yep.
And he came up on the field and he had to take evasive action to avoid George there, so that was a close call.
Yeah, if he would have gone into the field like that, we really could have said we'd seen it all in this 10 car race.
So let's reset things, shall we? No one's gonna. In fact, no. Laval will pit this time once pit road opens because he'll need that fuel because he's only about 10 laps away from having to pit under green flag conditions. He will come in. I don't think Jinx, Garise, Vanneman will come into pit road this time by, but we now pretty much have a 5-horse race, and these 5 cars are very closely separated. So, going to be interesting for the last 100-ish laps or so of this race. But Dave Jinks is still scored as your race leader from Dennis Grease, Bram Vanneman in third, Gorg Newdox in fourth, and now Eric Laval rounds out your top 5.
Wow. What started out as a race that looked like we were going to go the whole race caution-free has now turned into just, what's going to happen next? If you're in this race, you have a chance to win.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're still out there running with all the things that have gone on, Marshall's law dictates that you're going to get a top 5. But if you're currently in the top 5, Marshall law or Murphy's law, I'm just an idiot and just screwing up my names here. Murphy's law dictates that you're going to DNF if you're in the top 5 at this point. But talking about Laval, you guys were talking about him with the fuel. He's got a pit for the tires regardless, so I'm definitely sure he's going to come in.
Oh, there's no reason.
As he ducks late, I'm not sure. I know that the ISOWC rules dictate you have to use the back road for the green flag stops. I don't know if they're that picky on the caution laps at this point. Although considering all that's happened, I don't think they will be looking at pit road entry for penalties at first. They may overlook some of those.
Guys coming down onto pit road. Eric Laval indeed is bringing his car on towards pit road to top up with fuel and get himself 4 fresh tyres. Another car coming in as well. I believe that is Gorg Newdox in the 95 car. So a little bit of a split strategy now going on between the Vortex. In fact, no, it wasn't.
The Bram.
Yeah, it was Bram Vanneman there in the 4 car. So he's bringing his car onto pit road. He's going to try and play the interesting game. And of course, I'm going to talk about strategy very quickly. You go green from here, 110 laps. That puts you onto lap 255. You're going to be 12 laps short. So everyone right now is going to have to make a splash and dash. This field stays closed. Those guys right now have probably got to have 2 gallons of fuel. 2 gallons of fuel is worth about a second and a half in pit road. That could make a big difference towards the end of this race if they don't get too much separation.
With so few cars left, I don't know why you wouldn't pit. Maybe if you're the leader, I'd say the clean air is good, but everyone else, if you can just stay up there, if you can save a half second to just a second on fuel on your last stop, that could be the difference. So we'll see if Bram and Laval can stay up there, but the way this as George is pitting now on this lap. So
yeah, that's intriguing. Why is he coming onto pit road now? Because that's going to put him, I mean, it's only a couple of places, but it's going to put him behind the likes of Adam and everything else. So, intriguing there. Also, I think Newdrops might have just thought, wait a minute, these guys have possibly hit onto a trick here, and now he wants to join that as well. So, Dave Jinks and Dennis Grease are going to be lighter on field than anyone else.
And I think Eric Laval's coming back in to top off, so George is only going to lose 1 position. So I say that is a very good strategy, and I like what Laval is doing. If you're going to be last, you might as well top it off to save that 10th or 2 even for the 10th of a gallon you burned. But when it comes to that final pit stop, every 10th of a second is huge.
I don't know if Laval's stopping for fuel. He does, his side pod and front ring are a little crimpled. I think he's just trying to get as much repairs as he can. Although, if he was getting repairs, he was sitting in that box an awful short time. So I might be real wrong.
I think that was just a splash and go. But you know, the way this race has gone, there's no telling how many cars could be left. I mean, we could be in a situation where it's a shame Jonathan Goke retired with his clean car, because the way it's been going, I mean, we might not have any cars at the end of this race since we've seen anything, anything and everything.
Although, just a point for Eric Laval, if you're gonna do what he just did, you might as well only pit on the second lap rather than on both of them. You get the same amount of fuel in the car, but you didn't have to pit the first time. So that's maybe he's just trying to confuse everyone.
Maybe that's something. I mean, you pit the first time, then you come out and you go, wait a minute, I'm in the back anyway. I might as well come back in the top off.
Yeah, but on a point you made earlier on a fact of, I don't know why any of these guys wouldn't pit. I definitely agree with you. I mean, we're talking about 5 cars in the race. Well, I'm going to stop talking about this as the pace car pulls in. And Dave Jinks is getting ready to take him to the green flag, and Jinks gets a good start. Garice almost spins it.
He just about spin it, but he's going to have a good run. Is he going to go up the inside? Yes, he is. I think we've got a lead change. Move Garice to the point.
That we do.
And
Garice
Dave Jinks is going to possibly have the chance to stay on that outside line. He's going to be close between these two drivers as they work themselves back down into turn number 3 once again. Of course, now they're up to speed. Garice is going to have to be careful on that inside line. They're still going to be too wide. And Jinks on that outside line still holding it off for the time being. They almost touch there as they come down the front straight away, down into turn number 1 once again. Jinks retakes the race lead, and at the same time, Newjocks has got himself past Bram Vanneman.
Yeah, so changes for the lead, changes for third, and wow, the leaders were close there. I was really concerned if they would have stayed side by side on the cold tires if Garice would have been able to hold the inside, but now we will see how his car handles behind Jinks. This is, I think, the closest he's been this long. I mean, I say this long into the run. Typically, he fell back 3, 4, 5 tenths, but now he is right there, and looks like he's just inching closer as they go down the back straightaway.
So, let's have a look at Dave Jinks, actually. He was very lucky on that restart. Now he's been able to get back ahead of Dennis Garice. It's almost like we're back to where we were 25 laps ago. Garice able to stick right up behind him, but not close enough to make a pass. And Jinks' car does handle very well in clean air.
That it does. There's been a couple people that have been behind him throughout this race, and they've not been able to even really attempt to make a move on him, whether it's been Garice and his car that actually seems superior on the short runs, but it just seems like Jinks can put his car in all the right places that his opposition can't get by.
Let's have a look at Dennis Garice actually as well in that number 16 car. Sorry, our timing just went down for a moment there, but Garice in that second position. In fact, he's going to look that car to the outside line. And he is looking a lot more racy. He might have done some changes to his car because, in fact, he is now less than 1/10 of a second behind Dave Jinks in that battle for the race lead. And Garice all of a sudden is trying to breath of fresh air, but then he gets a little bit sideways in turn number 2.
What happened there was he hit the dirty air in one and had more steering input than the car wanted, and then when the car found the grip, had a little bit too much input. Good catch there, and so his car's a little bit unsettled, and that being so, if he gets the opening to take the lead, I think he's going to take it because he is not going to want to play around with this dirty air for too much longer.
He would not want to do that indeed. I think he want to get himself back to the point as quickly as possible. But with all the Vortex drivers, we do know how his car can struggle in clean air a little bit. Behind them, Gorg Newjocks is now 1.7 seconds behind those drivers and involved in a pretty interesting fight with Bram Vanneman for third position as well. Vanneman dropped off just a little bit that last lap, but still in the running that fourth spot. And let's not forget, Vanneman is just a tiny bit heavier on fuel than those two cars out front. But Newjocks as well, he's been able to get some form of speed going for the time being. He's doing the same lap times as the race leader, so we're in about 1/10 of a second.
Yeah, his car just on the start of these runs, this race, I think he was so close to hitting the perfect setup. His car just, I would say it's just,
as he brushes the wall.
Maybe he tapped the wall at some point in time that we didn't catch. His car just seems to be inconsistent. The speed is still there, but it just isn't as strong as it was at the onset of the race.
Yeah, either he brushed the wall or we saw him early on where he was really, really loose. He may just not be confident and may be holding back just a teeny tiny bit to keep from making those mistakes, like hitting the wall or spinning out in front of the entire field, aka the other 4 cars. But yeah,
the problem is when you start when a loose car gets in your head and you don't drive it to 100%, this car is designed to be driven at 100%. So when you start trying to compensate, when you start, our race leader,
Dave Jinks into the wall there, and that was coming out of turn number 2. There was just at that point a change in wind. It went from a northeasterly to a northerly wind. He just gets aero tight, and he couldn't keep it out of the wall. He's lost positions. He's you look as though he's got that car back to some form of speed, but he's doing a couple of miles an hour slower. So now Dave Jinks has handed the lead over to Dennis Garis, and this race continues to evolve.
I think what these drivers, when they have spotters, I think the spotters, one of the things they're going to have to do in the future is let them know what the wind conditions are. They're going to have to let them know when the wind shifts, because if you're not prepared for it, next time you come around when that wind has shifted, all of a sudden you're going to find yourself in the wall and you're going to be thinking, what did I do wrong? And it was just that the wind caught you out. Good to see, though, that Jinx's car is drivable. Might need a yellow, which I don't know if we have enough cars to, and well, Jinx is reeling in the leader, so obviously his car not too bad off.
Very lucky by the look of it.
I think it's really tight off of two, and Nujux gets a big run as well as Veneman. So I don't think his car is really perfect. His car looks decent on the entry, but it seems like mid and exit he gets really tight. And although he does get a run on George right here, and that's real close.
If his car's tight, he's not going to want this dirty air this time.
No, he's not, and he's going to hold that car. He's got it down to the second groove. He's been able to do some changes, we think, to his in-car adjustment. He was able to keep it going there, but at that time he lost half a second. Garis is pulling away for the time being. He's scored Nujux in that second position. This is going to be, I think, like a critical lap now for Dave Jinks. He's going to have to make sure they can stay behind Nujux. This time by he does a 25.568 to back into some form of rhythm now for Dave Jinks as he comes out of turn number 2. He's having to really use that seam to turn that car right now. Nujux almost brushes the wall there coming out of 2.
And Bram just about followed him. In fact, I think Bram did just brush it. So, wow, I don't think I've seen a race where so many cars conked the wall or brushed the wall. This has been, I'm going to blame it on the wind because that's something to blame it on, but wow, we've seen a lot of just, oh, and George gets loose into the bottom. We saw that once, and Dave Jinks back to second.
Yeah, and it's chaos going on here. Bram Vanneman is just waiting to pick up the pieces, but Vanneman there gets a better run out of turn number 4. He's not going to be quite close enough to make the move over Nujux, but these second and third position cars, Dave Jinks and Nujux, they are all over the place at this stage of the race, and getting Dennis Garis' leads now up to 2.1 seconds as Nujux now goes a little bit high.
He goes high, he goes low. That car obviously unsettled, and you know, we saw it earlier when he had clean air. That's when his car got loose, and once again it was when he had cars behind him. He got loose out of 2, and now with the car in front of him, his car's washing up. So, oh wow, that's kind of hard to tell your crew that my car's tight when there's a car in front of me and loose when there's a car behind me. Really hard to find a balance when it's both ends of the spectrum.
So Garis still leads away. That gap is now up to 2.3 seconds on the racetrack. Jinx is in second position, Nujux in third, Bram Vanneman in the 4th position, and the foul runs out your top 5. But Garis pulling away now.
Garis is pulling away, and I think of everybody, he's ran the cleanest race. Which obviously has shown why he's in first. There's been no wall contact to speak of, no real moments. It seems everybody else has had a major moment. We had Bram avoiding the spinning Mark Redford. George, I don't know how many times he's saved his car. We've had Dave Jinks conking the wall, and Jinks gets loose out of 2. And Nujux to the inside, and we're having another change for second, maybe.
Yeah, these cars really are not handling well. And we've had the issue that the entire race, these cars have been struggling quite a lot in turn number 2. And it's all because of the way that, you know, the car, as it comes out of that headwind into turn number 1, then just pushes on the exit of the corner. And Jinx is still on the outside line. He's going to try and make that pass happen on the outside. Nujux there, and the 2 almost very close there between Jinx and Nujux, but Jinx is going to get the better run on the outside line as they come past the stripe. He will retain second position officially at that line, but Nujux back on the inside line. This is where these 2 have issues, and he's going to get sideways again. He's going to get very sideways, and that allows Vanneman to go past him.
So Bram to 4th, and I was just about to think we don't have enough cars for these cars to make contact. So a great save by Great side by George to keep it in this race, but how many times has he drifted out of turn 2?
Man, with all the drifting and wall brushing we're seeing, it reminded me a lot of that truck race at Eldora, man. Like almost exactly the same.
Another thing, speaking of the wind, I attended the inaugural IndyCar race in Vegas in '96, and it was windy out there, and every time the wind shifted in 1996 out there, there was a crash. And it's almost the same way here. Every time the wind shifts, somebody seems to either get loose or hit the wall in two. So very realistic dynamic here that when the wind shifts, you got to be prepared, or well, you're either going to get loose or have your race be over.
Vanneman's now up into the second position ahead of Dave Jinks.
Oh, wow.
Now, who saw that coming at the start of this race? Now, remember, Veneman didn't set a time, so he was behind everybody. And to be up in second place now, I mean, just goes to show you that once that race starts, you can't have a thought process of, oh, well, I'm off the pace or this, that. Anything can happen, and you can be anywhere at any time.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Our race leader, Dave, Grease started 6th. Bram didn't start a time. Dave Jinks started 9th. So, almost contact as Dave Jinks tries to go for the second spot, but there's nobody in the top 5 that qualified in the top 5, I believe. No, George, sorry. Yeah, George, but what a shuffle between qualifying and the race.
Less than 100 laps here to go in the Kentucky 400. Once again, drama. 3 cautions here today. Caution number 1 caused between Randy Crosno and Matt Cook. The 2 teammates taking themselves out of the race after they had an incident on pit road. Yeah, so they had the incident on pit road first, then they had that incident which caused the first caution today, putting both cars out of the race. Second caution caused by Mark Redford, a single car spin bringing out our second caution, and then it was Dave Judson and Eric Hunter causing the third caution of the day. So a negated field now, but it looks like that Grease and Clean Air has been able to finally pull away as Jinks, Vanneman and Newjox keep on switching positions. All 3 of those cars are just not handling at all.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head when you said this was sort of like the trucks at Eldora. I really don't want to make a NASCAR truck reference on dirt to this, but just the way they've been sliding, it's that is a very good comparison. Bouncing off the wall, bouncing off each other. This has been a very atypical race.
Well, it's not too much like the trucks. The trucks at Eldora weren't too affected by the wind.
Oh, that's true. We got to keep the wind talk up.
But Vanneman, he's now falling down into the 4th position again, and his car is looking very, very tight, losing speed now to both Newjox and Jinks, as Newjox is the one picking up the pace once again, very close to the rear of Dave Jinks all of a sudden.
Yeah, speaking on Veneman, I wouldn't be surprised if he has his car set up tight. I mean, I think him and Grease are the only people we've seen not really get loose at any point in the race. I mean, everyone else we've seen have those moments. As Dave Jinks has one right there, and I'm sure George will have another one next time around, because that's the way it seemed to work. Every time George gets by Dave, George has a little hiccup. But I mean, it just seems like Bram and Dennis are the 2 people who are really not getting loose.
So battle continuing for 2nd, 3rd and 4th positions on the racetrack. To give you an update on Eric Laval, he's about 2 seconds behind these cars. He's on a slightly different strategy. I still think that he's going to try and make it to the end of the race, only having to stop 2 more times. Everyone else, I think, still has to stop 3 more times in this race, especially Dennis Grease out front with that 5-second lead over Gork Newjox. But, of course, these guys, they're halfway through a stint once again, and they all look as though their tyres are struggling. And the track temperature, it's dropped a couple of degrees once again, and that wind has changed once again. It keeps on going to a northeasterly wind, and every time it goes to a northeasterly wind, Randy, that's when these cars really do struggle. Yeah,
the wind change isn't too huge, but even the slightest effect could be affecting the handling. Laval pit with, what, 110 to go? If we remember correctly?
He was very close to the limit of being able to do it with just 2 more stops. He was about He was very close. He was in about 3 or 4 laps. I don't think he'll have to do it without being able to save a lot of fuel, however.
Well, I was going to say, he might be, I mean, we were talking before the race, we were talking about 55 laps for a stint, about. And if he pit with 110 to go, he might be able to squeeze a one-stopper. Even if he has to coast the entire way around, if he can cut an entire pit stop, coasting around the track at, you know, I don't know how much speed he'll lose out quickly, but that could actually be better than pitting.
He's saying that, but he's really, right now, one of the fastest guys on the racetrack. He's closing that gap to Vanneman and Jinx ahead of him at some point,
no,
but then he falls back.
I'm saying if he were to run out of fuel on the final lap and coast
it is
on
quicker.
the white.
It clearly is quicker. I've done it a couple of times in my racing career before, most famously at both Charlotte and Talladega. Running out of fuel in the last lap, you lose a lot less time. In fact, we had a Week 13 Will Vincent challenge, shall we say, at Homestead Miami Speedway. It was faster to run out of fuel and coast the car onto pit road than it was to actually do that extra stop. So it's one of those things I think that a couple of drivers might bear in mind. And Laval, if he does it, if he can save that 1 lap of fuel so he runs out, so long as he does it after about turn 2, he will be faster than making that extra stop. He wouldn't just close it to the line.
To keep our talk alive, there's one element we do have to remember, and that's the wind. I mean, we talked 55, but we don't really know what they're getting right now. The first pit stops with Cook and Krosno, that came before lap 55, did it not? When did they have their
right
collision?
on the cusp of it.
Yeah, they pitted first on lap number 55. Most of those guys were lap 55 through to about 57. So they came in about 2 bunches, lap 55, 56. A couple of drivers came on lap 57. Dennis Garis right now running in clean air. He'll probably only do about 55 laps, so he will have to stop 2 more times in this race. Gorg Nujox right now is maintaining that gap for the time being with Dennis Garis. He's only losing about a 10th of a second a lap. Dave Jinks behind him. All of a sudden he's been able to pick up the pace as well. And that car does work better the second half of a fuel one, clearly, because now he's right on the rear of Gorg Nujox once again. And those two looking as though they found a way to stabilise their car for the time being.
That doesn't, I wonder, it was George that pitted on our, let's see, I know Laval pitted on that last lap. Who came, was it?
We have Laval, Vanneman, and Nujox come in as Nujox gets sideways again, and Dave Jinks almost runs into the rear then.
Oh, God.
Jinx could have made a pass. You think Jinx is playing the draft game to save fuel? Because he really could have gone around him. And
yeah, he could have gone around him twice there. And again, he just got out of the gas and allowed Nujox to stay ahead of him. It's a bit of a dangerous game because if Nujox gets sideways again, that's going to pretty much fit Jinx into the rear of him.
Yeah, saving all the fuel in the world doesn't matter if your race ends up in the wall. But I think obviously Dave Jinx is playing the fuel game.
Just think about it. Even if he ends up at the wall at this point, he's still guaranteed a top 5. So he may just be thinking a little bit in that area as well. I mean, he's running 3rd and probably hoping he's probably just thinking, well, if I save fuel, I could win, and if I don't, I still finish 5th at worst.
I don't think I've seen a race where the gamble, like the gamble is to stay behind the car that is extremely loose, but in all reality, it isn't that big of a gamble position-wise.
Yeah, this. If I were to sum up this race so far, I would sum this up as the race of dodge your teammate, dodge your opposition, dodge the wind, dodge anything and everything you possibly can, and you will finish in the top 5.
What a definitely a race to remember.
Meanwhile, that battle continues between Nujox and Jinx and Vanneman. Vanneman is also just staying in line, of course. Vanneman's got the most fuel out of those drivers. Stuck in the draft, being able to save the fuel. He's not making any inroads at all on Dave Jinx. And I think for Vanneman, he's in the best position of those 3 drivers right now.
Yeah, Vanneman he's been really patient, like we were saying earlier. Besides Garis, he's the one guy we've seen not really get out of shape at any point. We've seen him get tight, but the thing is with tight is generally controllable, whereas loose if you're loose, your car can just snap underneath you at any point and allow you to not really get comfortable and just cruise, which is really what Veneman's been doing all race long. He's been content with just hanging out where he's at and just letting the guys in front of him do whatever they want to do.
So we've got ourselves a little over 70 laps left to go in this race. Okay, Dave Jinks is coming onto pit road this time.
All right, now here's where things get really, really interesting.
And he does have a little bit of damage, which makes this whole process just a little bit more difficult.
Unfortunately for him, he doesn't have a teammate. Oh, see, this is his strategy. His strategy is to knock that cone into the racing line, so that one of the faster cars hit it, and he can win the race. Dave Jinks is a strategic mastermind.
Oh, our leader, yeah, Grease and Jinx both are in.
So Grease is making his pit stop as well there from the race lead. That puts Gorg Nujox as your race leader for the time being. Nujox, will he come onto pit road this time? I'm not quite sure. He'll probably stay out for another 3 or 4 laps, we think. And the tipping point for this race, the lap that they want to get to is lap 200 and I'm not quite sure, 207? Anywhere between 2.7 and 2.12, they can probably make it. If they can get to 2.12, they'll be golden. Otherwise, they are still going to have to make one more stop in this race. There's 70 laps left to go in this race, so clearly, Dave Jinks is going to have to make one more stop. He'll need to get another about 15 laps worth of fuel. For Nujox, however, and Vanneman and Laval, they've all got to see how far they can stretch it at this point in time.
And yeah, that's the name of the game.
Yeah, I think if it were me at this point, I'd be trying to get to about lap 212. 207 is a little early and is a little bit too risky, and I generally think that if you go in too early, you're not really getting anything if you end up having to save later on anyways. But I don't know, it's definitely going to be interesting to see, with Dave being the one to blink first and then Dennis going directly after.
Hey, it could be worse. We could be watching the Brickyard 400, Aaron.
That's true. No. Oh,
hey,
yeah.
Hey, they have wind too.
They also have tyre issues, if you think back to 2008.
Oh, that was one of the as Bram's coming into the pits. I got a free ticket. I went to that race last year, and I think I spent more time playing Words with Friends and looking on Facebook than I actually did watch the race. So that was one of the more boring experiences of my life.
I just want to say, when this rebroadcast goes up on YouTube, you need to put an annotation at the very beginning for everyone to take a drink every time we mention the win.
Gorg Nujox is onto pit road from the race lead, so he doesn't make it that far. Only for lap 200, so he'll have to do a splash and dash as well. And I can also believe Bram's on pit road. Bram's on pit road. Morpoulet, Eric Val stays out. He is currently scored as your race leader, which is going to be interesting. And also, interesting to see who comes out ahead out of Nujox, Bram Vanman, etc. and Dennis Gariz, as Laval is now onto pit road. So we'll see what happens with him. Gorg Nujox is onto his pit box. In fact, he's almost out of fuel there. Van Vanneman is back. Oh, to the racetrack, almost hits the wall there for him. Dennis Gariz is ahead of him, so Gariz is able to retake the race lead. I think Nujox must have had some form of an issue.
Maybe, not really sure what happened there. It seemed like he was on pit road for a long time. Maybe not. Fun watch my replay, but definitely wouldn't surprise me if someone had an issue in this race.
And Gorg Nujox almost gets himself above the yellow line. That would have got him a penalty, which would have put him, I'd say, out of the race. But yeah, meanwhile, Vanneman is clearly now ahead of Nujox by about a second and a half. Eric Laval, he's going to come out of pit road. This is going to be interesting what happens with Laval, because he might be able to leapfrog Gorg Nujox by the look of it as they come back onto the racetrack. No, he doesn't. In fact, Laval has a very slow pit-in lap, so that hurts him just a little bit. And right now, Dennis Gariz is once again scored as your race leader.
And Dave Jinks, obviously, he was up there, and now he is way back from the cars in front of him. So He definitely had issues coming in or coming out because he is now our 5th place car. Even Eric Laval's in front of him.
Yeah, he might have, I'll see if he might have had an issue pitting. He might have just taken it ultra conservative, knowing that that we had all those issues with pit road earlier on, that he was just making sure he got onto and off of it quickly.
I also think
and safely.
Exiting the pits, I think his car started to wash up the track, and I think he really had to get out of it to stay below the yellow line, and that happened right when you're about to put full power down the back straightaway, and that could have cost a lot of time as well.
Well, remember, he's the one that also almost missed the commitment line as well and knocked that cone and lost some time there as well. I know you think I'm joking, but just the line he had to take, because he went to get to the commitment cone too fast, he did lose a bit of speed there.
So it's Malcolm Reese from Vanneman, from Newgott, from Laval, from Dave Jinks. They are your top 5 in the ISOWC Kentucky 400. Racking up the laps, we've only got 61 laps left to go. Yes, I know.
When there's only 5 cars on track, would it be your top 5 or just your 5? Well, of course I'm going to say that. I'm a jerk.
I'm a commentator, therefore I'm the consummate professional. Vanneman has made a mistake, and this is going to move Newjocks up a position. And does Vanneman hit the wall? Or does he? No, he just gets very sideways. He loses about 20 miles an hour there coming out of turn number 2. I say he does have that damage when he hit the inside pit wall, and this knows Newjocks back into P2.
He actually, entering turn 1 that lap, he did scrape the wall as well after Newjocks got by. So I think Vanneman's tight car might be working against him at this point.
And now we'll see how Newjocks, how he works. His story of this race has been he doesn't want clean air, and now he has it, so now he's going to have to hang on. I think if he can build a gap, having no cars behind him, I think will help, because when you get a car behind, that does loosen it up just a little bit, and I think he has a big enough gap now that he isn't going to get that loose, but we'll have to see, as seems to be in the middle of the run that his car just wants to step out from under him.
Yeah, so Newjocks is now loose. Oh, Vanneman is stupidly tight, and he hit the wall again on the entry into turn number 1. Really difficult there for Vanneman. I think his race might be done here. No, he carries on. So we'll keep an eye out to Brian Vanneman. That car really is not handling well for him at all. He white-walled the safer barrier, and he's almost going to do it again here, coming out of turn number 4. This is not going on for him, and Brian Vanneman is struggling right now. And for those of you who's wondering what that music was just on in the background, that is an ice cream van in England.
Can you go give me an ice cream sandwich and what other goodies do they sell in the ice cream vans?
I'll get you an ice cream sandwich. We don't actually do ice cream sandwiches over here.
Don't do ice cream sandwiches?
No.
You people, you don't have fat people?
Well, I'm not going to answer that question.
So, in other words, yes, you do have fat people.
I did have an Oreo ice cream though, for the first time today. It was amazing, an Oreo cream. But meanwhile, back to the race, working on that 211. That wasn't a paid product placement there, YouTube, just for the record. But Vanneman losing out big time now. Eric Laval is closing him down, as is Dave Jinks. Of course, in exactly 1 month's time, Aaron, 4 weeks, we're going to be at Indianapolis.
I'm going to interrupt you as Jinx goes inside of the wall into turn number 1. Sorry about that, Will. We got to make this sort of exciting.
Okay, so we have got ourselves in 4 weeks' time, Aaron, the 3rd running of the ISOWC Indianapolis 500. There we will have a full field. For some reason, a lot of guys, and probably in protest or something, I'm not quite sure, as there's a revolution going on in the Blue Grass State, not showing up here today. One of the lowest participated races we have had this year. It looks more like an Indy Lights race, to be fair, as Dave Jinks is now all over the rear of Eric Laval once again as they come down into 3, and he brushes up very high, having to get out the gas. Indy is going to be incredibly interesting this year.
Oh, that it is. No matter what race no matter what series it is, or if it's official, unofficial league, when there's a 500 at Indy, the big names are going to come out, and boy, I'm so glad I'm going to be able to make that race in the booth for that. So looking forward to that, as at Indy, anything can and usually does happen. If you think this race is entertaining, that race, wow.
And of course, we're going to talk about that phrase one more time. Win at Indy. We've done a lot of testing. It does look as though we're looking at somewhere in the region of a northerly wind at about 9 miles an hour, as Dave Jinks is looking down to the inside. Not quite close enough there. He almost runs over the rear of Morpule Eric Laval, however. But Indy wind, 10 miles an hour east to the north. These guys won't be able to take turn 1 flat out anymore. It's going to make a completely different change.
Oh, such a big difference. As we said with this race, we've gone for many years with the static weather, knowing what's going to happen, and really there's no change. Just the levels to mention, the amount of testing that's going to happen. What will a 2 mile an hour wind difference do? What will wind when you're behind a car or in front of a car do? How much will the aero push be? I really think we're going to get out of that sort of almost draft lock type of racing, and now you're really going to have to work the car. It's going to be spectacular. That's all there is to it.
I still think the cones are the big game changer.
Well, you never know. Meanwhile, Dave Jinks is still on the rear of Eric Laval in this battle for the 4th position on the racetrack. The best battle we have going on right now. But Laval is seeming to hold that better line into out of turn 2 compared to Dave Jinks.
Yeah, they the two of them are going at it, and sorry. I can't get my words out.
So basically, Dave Jinks is as fast as Laval, but Laval is doing very, very good at positioning his car and preventing Jinks from getting by, which is actually pretty fortunate, considering Laval or Jinks at one point was leading, and Laval was actually a lap down.
And one thing, while
come on, Aaron, you got to be serious.
Yeah, while I try to get my composure back, George is closing on the leader about a 10.5 to 2/10 of a second a lap. So, with 47 laps to go and a 4.4 second lead, don't count out a battle for the lead by the end of this race. There, got it out.
We're going to step aside for just a moment and show you the view from high above the Kentucky Speedway. We'll be back in just a couple of moments.
To the inside.
Welcome back to the ISOWC Kentucky 400. Dave Jinks down to the inside of Eric Laval in the battle for the 4th position, and still Laval's going to try and work that outside line. Still the best battle we have on the racetrack, although Greg Nujox is still closing in a tiny bit over Dennis Curries in the battle for the race lead. This battle for 4th position, however, still carries on, and Dave Jinks has been able to get himself now into clean air. He's got 3 seconds to close up on Brian Bannerman. Now he's in that clean air. He might be able to pull away from Laval and close up on Bannerman just a little bit.
Yeah, Jinks has been one of the fastest cars all day, and Bannerman's kind of struggling the entire race. He should be able to close his gap up just fine.
So Dennis Gary still leads the way. We apologise there for those sound technical difficulties that just came through on the stream. But the gap between Garis and Nujox, it looks as though that it's kind of gone up a little bit recently, Aaron. As Nujox is struggling once again in the middle phase of a fuel run.
That it is. I definitely thought George was going to close in, and he was. We had about a 6-second gap. Now it's about 4.4. So later in the run, obviously that loose condition, I believe, is back. Which let's see what happens this lap. We go from about 4.5 to almost 4.6. So about a tenth and a half. He lost that lap. So.
Oh no! Nujox into the wall! Nujox into the wall, and he is out of the race.
Wow, his car just immediately went over the wall, so he is out of the race. So that's going to end his race, and the way he wrecked, that isn't going to bring out a yellow. So the leader's going to breathe a sigh of relief there, as now he has a 10.5-second lead with the other 3 cars behind him.
And those 3 cars are pretty closely separated. Bram Vanneman, Dave Jinks, and Eric Laval in the battle for 2nd position. It does look as though that Jinks is closing up on Vanneman in that battle for 2nd position.
That it is, and for the race leader, as I said with Matt Cook at the beginning, sometimes you have a race where everything goes right. You have a massive lead, and that's when things can happen. You may just become a little bit lackadaisical in your focus. You may get a speeding penalty. You may just find the wall. It's so easy. This is a long race now on lap 233 to just, and maybe that's what happened with George, just your focus leaves just for a tenth of a second, and all of a sudden you find the wall. Although Dennis Grease is, if you see how close he's coming to the wall, he is about 3 lanes away from the wall on exit, so he is very conservative right now, and for him, this race comes down to if he can just get on and off pit road with no issues.
And for Garis right now, I'd say cruise at home. For Vanneman, Jinks, and Laval, it will all come down to this final pit stop. Let's not forget that Jinks has to take more fuel on the site. He's going to have to come in earlier, therefore he's going to have to take more fuel than those drivers around him. He's been able to pull away from Laval for the time being, but he had a very slow stop that last time, Randy, and that really could hurt him. He might fall back behind Laval, and it did take him a long time to get past him on this long green flag run.
Yeah, even after we saw Jinx leading those laps, though, and Laval was kind of struggling throughout the race, we do know that Jinx was faster, but the fact that Laval could keep him behind him for as long as he did just shows how hard it is to pass in these cars when you got the aero push and having a car in your way, and then the difference the wind tends to make. But yeah, this X Factor.
Let's talk to AeroX's Matt Cook very quickly. He's finally calmed down after 2 incidents with his teammates, Randy Krosno. First of all, Matt, you got Takuma Sato'd on pit road, and then it looks as though you had nowhere to go when Krosno had to check up big time coming out of turn number 2.
Yeah, I think Randy just kind of came in a little bit hotter than he was expecting for the pit stop, and I should have been a little bit more aware, seeing how low he was entering in turn 1, that he was ultimately going to have to check up really hard to make that turn. So, I mean, it was just an unfortunate racing incident, and as much as I tried to slow down quickly, it just ultimately made me push up even harder.
And it was a small field here at Kentucky, and the conditions here today have been absolutely horrible, especially down into turn 1 with that wind.
For sure. The wind makes a huge difference. Your car is ultimately having a form of aero push, actually. The complete opposite of what I thought it would be, being that, you know, you were losing the amount of aero that was on your car. You actually just have too much. So you have to find a nice balance that doesn't affect the car overall during the length of the run, but something that will allow you to make that turn.
And of course, as we approach the month of August, ISOWC's version of the month of May, and Indianapolis, we're going to have very similar conditions at Indy by the way the forecasts are playing out. A wind coming from the north, which is going to be down into turn number 1. How much of an impact is that going to have at the Brickyard in exactly 4 weeks' time?
It is going to have a massive impact. I mean, as you saw in this race, cars were really spread out right off the start. Everyone had to adapt really quickly to the wind conditions and how that was making the car handle. A lot of people ended up getting slowed down, and as you saw with the Vortex guys, they're really having trouble coming out of turn 2. The cars are just getting loose, and you're going to see something similar to that at Indianapolis, except yeah, I'm more worried about the cars actually getting pushed up during the turn, right in the apex of the turn, which will cause them to come out too high and go up into the wall.
Meanwhile, Dave Jinks has been able to get himself past Bram Vanneman, Aaron. So Jinks is back up into the 2nd position, and he's hoping to salvage something from this race. And he's really had an up and down day here today.
Oh, he is. Up and down is about the best way to describe it. And he had a great pass on Bram. I don't think Bram fought him that hard. Jinks got on the inside in turn 1 and just made the easy pass. But we still have 1 pit stop to go, so maybe Bram's thinking I'll get him there when they make the pit stop. But Jinks led this race for a while now. It's in Grease's hands whether or not he can get on and off pit road, which what we've seen, we have 25 laps to go, and I'm not going to call the winner yet. Anybody could win this. This has been just wacky.
Replay
you know
up
who
on
the
your
winner
screen.
of this race is? The winner of this race is the win, I think, is what we've found.
The winner of this race is us being able to sustain this for 243 laps. However, you saw the replay up on your screen of Dave Jinks passing Brian Bannerman in that 76 car over the 4 machines and moved broken arrows. Dave Jinks up into P number 2. Dennis Garis is still your race leader. 11 seconds a gap, and it looks like Jinks is pulling away now from Bannerman. Of course, Jinks is going to have to come on pit road before these guys, and that's going to be within the next 5 laps or so. In fact, he came on pit road last time on lap 195, so he's going to come on pit road, we think, on lap 250. So he's going to need 15 laps worth of fuel. And now he came in a good 4 or 5 laps before everyone else. That's going to cost him about a second and a half maybe on pit road, the extra fuel he'll have to take. So he's going to have to push now, and he's doing that to get ahead of Bannerman. The gap right now, half a second. He's going to need a little bit more just to make it a bit more comfortable for him. And again, he did have those issues last time on pit road.
That he did, and when pit issues get into your head, it's so easy to next time overcompensate. So yeah, I thought he was coming in, but he just got a little bit loose at it too. But yeah, most certainly he's going to want to build up a cushion now, which right now it's only about 0.6 of a second. So not enough to maybe make the difference, and maybe that's why Bram didn't really fight him, knowing the different strategies here.
And Vanneman in the 3rd position, he's still got a good chance of leapfrogging him. Larry Laval looks like he's fallen out of contention. He's running in the 4th spot right now, Randolph, and he was able to get himself back on the lead lap, but not being able to make any influence apart from that.
Yeah, he might be just kind of cruising, knowing that there's been issues on pit road all race long for a lot of people, both having issues with other drivers and with people themselves. Like we were talking about, Dave Jinks lost a lot of time last one. They might just be thinking, hey, if I just stay here, ride it out patient, just hit my marks, don't try to push and gain too much time on pit road, and just worry about coming out clean, I could go from 4th to 2nd real quick here. I mean, there's only we're only talking about like a 3.5 second gap between Jinks, Veneman, and Laval. So really, I mean, if the 2 drivers ahead of him have even a minor issue, I mean, Laval could easily get by.
Here comes Jinks.
Jinks onto pit road. Let's see whether he can get it down this time.
Our race leader also on.
So Garis onto pit road as well. And these 2 came on the last lap the last time they pitted. Let's see whether they can both get down inside the cones. And Jinks is just about going to make that. He probably will just avoid a speeding penalty there. Having a look to see, and it was easily down to speed there for Dennis Garis, so no issues for him. Getting 4 fresh tyres, going to top up with Sunoco race gas. 4 fresh tyres just late in the race, though.
But Laval did clip the wall going into turn 3 this past lap.
Normal play. Garis is back out. Of course, this is the difficult part. This narrow pit exit. Got to make sure he's got to keep all 4 wheels below that yellow line. Keeping an eye out on him, and got to keep an eye out on Dave Jinks as well. He can now accelerate back up to speed. and once again he will rejoin the race with 17 laps left to go.
This track used to have a exit road just like turn 3, but when NASCAR came to Kentucky, they wanted more parking space in the infield, so they got rid of the I guess the pit access lane like we have in 3 and made this really difficult narrow exit.
Oh, I really like it. I think with how narrow that is, it's actually something that just makes it a little bit difficult, a lot more fun to watch, a lot harder. I think it's a good thing, to be honest, rather than these wide, sort of fairly easy to get off pit road situations you get, at least for NASCAR. IndyCar exiting pit roads aren't everywhere.
But Vanneman, for the time being, leads the way in that number 4 car, and he's coming onto pit road this time.
Oh, he got real close to that wall entering. At least from the angle I was looking at, it looked like he was real close.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
not.
let's see whether he can slow it down.
Oh.
He looks as though he's going to get it down to 45 miles an hour. Perfectly there for him in that number 4 machine. He's down 45 miles an hour. He probably will take tyres. In fact, if he doesn't take tyres, Matt, I'll bring you back into the conversation. If you're only taking about 15 laps of fuel, in fact less for Bram, he might get away with not taking tyres and be able to leapfrog Dave Jinks if he can keep it holding out of pit road.
Yeah, he might do that. It's really hard to say if he actually wants the new tires or not. I mean, if the time to change tires is going to be more than the amount that you need to put of gas that you need to put it in, it's going to be really hard for him to make that choice.
He didn't take tyres there, so he's back out. This is the difficult part now, and he's got to make sure he keeps it below that yellow line, and he's got himself a good exit. Let's see where Dave Jinks is.
Wow.
And Dave Jinks is way behind. And that is the difference between taking tyres and not taking tyres.
And with just 13 laps to go, I don't think Jinx has enough.
So Vanneman there, using strategy to his advantage. Eric Laval was going to probably bear that in mind as he makes his final stop of the day. Of course, he's still out on the racetrack. We're going to have a little under 10 laps to go, which is a little over 10 laps to go. I'm getting confused now. But working ourselves now onto lap 257 of 267, so 10 laps to go this time by. Eric Laval is the only guy not to pit. He is currently scored as your race leader. In fact, now he's coming onto pit road from the first position in that number 32 car.
That is, and the past 2 laps, you know, he was really probably hoping for a yellow. Not really enough cars out there to create a yellow, but if a yellow would have came out because he went longer, he was on a lap all on his own.
Yes, going back to Veneman and Jinx there, I mean, I don't know if that was completely pit stop time. There's only a 0.5 second difference between their stops. I think Veneman was just better in general getting onto and off of pit road than Jinx was by, you know, we're seeing a good 4 or 5 second margin.
So Laval, pit stop for him. He is out on the way. No tyres for him. He gets very squirty coming out of his box actually there, Aaron. Almost just speed it to the left into that attenuator.
Yeah, it's so easy there, especially when you know there's, if you can nail it, maybe you can gain a position, and in the end, not going to be the case on that stop. But wheel spin coming up to Jackson, getting out onto the track, just so easy to do, so easy to have a race ruined. Especially on a long race, when you make that final stop, you've been racing now for over 2 hours. You've been just concentrated, avoid the wall, avoid the wall, avoid the wall, and now all of a sudden you're exiting out of the pits, and sometimes that whole process just doesn't seem to register.
Less than 10 laps to go, 9 laps left to go in the ISOWC Kentucky 400. Don't forget, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time for the ISOWC Racer Champions. The track and the car yet to be determined. You're going to have to listen to IndyCar Weekly in exactly 10 days' time to figure out what is going to be on there. And then, of course, in 4 weeks' time, the ISOWC Indianapolis 500. We already have a total of 24 cars signed up for that event, Randolph. Many more still to come. And you said it at the start of this broadcast, it's one of the most prestigious IndyCar events of the year. And a number of guys looking to avenge their difficulties from May. Other guys looking to win a race that so far produced 2 winners. Young O, John Paquin.
Oh yeah, the ISOWC race, I think in some ways holds more prestige than the iRacing World Tour event. I mean, the World Tour event, you got a lot of ringers, and some guys just managed to find a setup and run quick and aren't really the regulars you run with week in and week out, and kind of lose its shine a little bit. But I think the ISOWC race is I'd argue even better. It's got the support from iRacing. You guys have 3 wide starts. I mean, what's there not to like?
And last year we had Sean Siff driving the pace car, and of course all for a good cause. This year supporting Autism Speaks, the ISOWC supporting Autism Speaks throughout its entire Season 3. Dennis Grease still leading the way. He's got himself a 10-second gap over Brian Vanneman, who now has a 2-second gap over Dave Jinks. Eric Laval, very slow on that pit stop. He's fell back 6 seconds behind Dave Jinks. 5 laps left to go. And for Dennis Grease, he's just got to make sure he can get himself through turn number 1 5 more times, Aaron.
Just 5 more times to do it, and he can, well, yeah, now 4. If you notice his line out of turn 2, he is not coming anywhere close to that wall. So he has a just over a 10.5 second, almost 10 3/4 second lead. So he has real estate to play with, and he just needs to cruise onto the finish line, or finish of the race.
Finish of the race. We're so close there. 264 laps going to be scored complete at the line. Dennis Grease working himself on 265. Down into turn number 3, he goes once again. And this is going to do big things for his championship campaign, Aaron. He was a good 100 points behind Judson coming into this race. Judson finishes down in the 7th position. Grease is going to win. Big points haul there for Grease, and he's going to need that. Remembering, next week we go to a road course, the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Complex, when Dave Judson will not be racing. He has a prior commitment, and Grease, again, is very strong there.
Yep, anytime you're good in one discipline and, you know, decent in another, when you come to the other thing and win, that's what wins championships. It's who can excel at the other discipline, and as I believe the white flag's out for our race leader.
White flag in hand, 1 more lap to go for Dennis Grease. We can count the seconds down now. Dennis Grease with a 10-second advantage over Brian Vanneman, working himself down into turn number 3 and 4 for the final time. And anything can happen at Kentucky, but for Dennis Grease, he's going to work it out with the final corner for the final time. He will take victory in round number 19 of the 2013 ISOWC. Brian Vanneman will come out of turn number 4. It looks like he is going to claim 2nd position by a couple of seconds over Dave Jinks. Dave Jinks is working himself past the line, and Brian Vanneman comes home in 2nd. Jinks in 3rd. Eric Laval rounds out your top 4. Grease, dominant drive by him, but you have to say, though, that Matt Cook, arguably at the start of that race, Randy, had that race in the bag. And losing him and Randy so early on did make a big impact.
Yeah, that was all Matt's race. It's unfortunate what happened to Matt, that Randy made his mistake on pit road, and then not sure what happened going in third one with Randy that took him and Matt out.
So, Dennis Grease, your race victor there in a time of 2 hours, 11 minutes. Just taking victory there from Brian Vanneman. Dave Jinks in 3rd. Eric Laval in 4th position. Gorg Nudrox rounds out the top 5. Then Eric Hunter, Dave Judson, Mark Redford, Matt Cook, Randy Crosney. They round out your top 10. We're back in 2 weeks' time for the ISOWC Racer Champions, and then in 4 weeks, the ISOWC Indianapolis 500. More action coming your way on GlacierTV next week with the Polo GT $1,000 Cup. And then, of course, GlacierTV, your home for the 2013 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series and the last 2 remaining rounds of the iRacing.com World Tour for 2013. For myself, Will Benson, Aaron Likens, and Randall Shenworth, you're only backman. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.